Chapter 625. The 30 over members who had been silent swept a glance at those youngsters lying on the ground. Their gazes swept past those corpses as their brows creased slightly. Following that, they cupped their fists in a manner that wasn't considered polite but wasn't lacking in manners. Since your group's mission has been completed, we've also completed the transaction between the two groups, so we shall take our leave now. Saying that, the group of them turned around and left. Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's clear voice was like a pearl falling on a plate as it reverberated in this silent and spacious magic beast forest entrance. 30 over members stopped in their tracks. Does Miss Yi have any other instructions? Their words had pulled the distance between the two of them apart, as though they didn't want to be involved with Yiqing Luo at all. Admiring someone was easy. Hating someone was also very easy. At this very moment, in the 30 over members' eyes, Yiqing Luo was an extremely vicious lady who was adept at scheming. In order to protect herself, she didn't mind sacrificing other people's lives. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the disdain and disgust in the members' eyes as she revealed a sweet smile and took out a piece of xian paper and a pen from the profound phoenix ring. She picked up the pen and wrote the world group's 3 words on the xian paper and immediately removed the mercenary group badge. Twisting the pin on the mercenary group badge, it was a symbol of vice group leader's seal. Yiqing Luo stamped the top of the xian paper and her slender fingers folded the xian paper neatly as she passed it to those members. The leader's expression changed as his brows furrowed. What do you mean by this? A piece of xian paper stamped with vice group leader's badge meant that she wanted to poach them openly? Didn't she despise them for being too old? Their looks weren't high enough? Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly as her long and narrow eyes revealed a captivating charm. As you think. You. This was the first time they saw someone poaching other mercenary groups' mercenaries in such an open and aboveboard manner. Give up, we are Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's mercenaries, we will only. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. Yiqing Luo interrupted the members' oaths with a smiling face as her fair fingers waved the xian paper. I admire your characters and am extremely interested in unpolished jades like you. The faces of more than 30 members twisted. Since they were unpolished jade, what was there to admire? Weren't they supposed to boast about it when they were poaching people? What kind of disparagement was this? You need to polish yourselves. You need to find the right way to guide them. Yiqing Luo ignored the expressions on their faces as she said word by word, this is the proof that I'm giving you. You can keep it first, perhaps. You might need it in future. Of course, if you're completely sure that you want to place your future and your life on the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group, then you can directly tear this piece of paper. The leader of the group stared at the paper with a hesitant expression. Listening to a 15-year-old girl say in an extremely mature manner that she wanted to guide them and polish them, this piece of unpolished jade. This feeling, it was so King strange. However, none of them could refute him. They had already seen Yiqing Luo's ability in the magic beast forest. However, why was she so confident that they would definitely keep her proof? The leader's peripheral vision swept past the expressions of the few people beside him as he stretched out his hand and received that xian paper. In front of Yiqing Luo, he was about to tear it down. We don't need it. Chapter 626. Yiqing Luo spoke extremely slowly as her voice was filled with gentleness, leisurely and contented. She didn't anxiously hope that they would agree, nor did she have the feeling that it didn't matter whether they agreed or not. She just calmly stated the truth. Your choice to me doesn't have much use. But to you. It's a choice of fate. Yiqing Luo saw the leader's hand which was about to tear the paper stopped as he stiffly maintained the action of tearing the paper. He was stunned for some time before he stiffly moved his arm. What do you have to make us believe you? Yiqing Luo's smile was brimming with confidence, based on the fact that I'm Yiqing Luo. The 30 or so members were completely stunned. Just how arrogant was this young lady? Based on the fact that she was Yiqing Luo. She had that much confidence in herself? Not knowing why, the group members had an urge to believe her. In their minds, the scene of what Ji Tsang Tian had done for Lan Ling Nuo appeared, which made one's heart turn cold. Looking at the ground full of corpses, their hearts ached. The main culprit of all these was Yiqing Luo. But Ji Tsang Tian definitely had something to do with it. Ji Tsang Tian abandoned his own brothers, and under his brother's cover, he left. Yet, these brothers of his had died here. Their group leader abandoned them. His 5 fingers curled up one by one. The leader of the group grabbed the piece of paper in his hand, as though he was making a huge decision. In the end, the leader kept the paper into his bosom as he gritted his teeth. I hope that we will never have the chance to meet again. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. I'm afraid this chance is not too far away. The 30 or so members left angrily. Looking at their departing figures, Kitty Lee blinked her watery eyes as she hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Sister, why did you give them that piece of proof? The world group, which was personally written by Yiqing Luo, was stamped by the vice group leader. This piece of paper represented Yiqing Luo. Giving this piece of paper to those people in Blue Dragon Group, wasn't she afraid that these despicable people would use that piece of proof to secretly do some sinister things? Momentarily, everyone was unable to understand Yiqing Luo's thoughts. These people, if we can rope them in and keep them for our own use, as long as we give them enough sincerity, they will definitely follow us through life and death. In just a short period of time, Yiqing Luo had already understood these people's characters. These people valued friendship and loyalty. With proper training, it wouldn't take long for them to stand on their own in the mercenary world. But aren't we going to be in the academy? Yan Xiaoyi didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. All the members of the world group were all students of the devil class. They went to school together and cultivated together on holidays. They only had 3 days a month. If he were to accept these people into the world group, wouldn't it be a huge mess? A portion of them are students of the Celestial Phoenix Academy. Their holidays are the same as ours. Yiqing Luo explained patiently. The other group are professional mercenaries, relying on completing missions to support themselves. We can establish a second group, and when we are all in the academy, we can represent the world group to head to the Mercenary Association to accept missions and grind for some honor points. Xiao Jin shook his head in disagreement. Even if it's the second group, they still represent the world group. If they were to use this opportunity to defame us. Chapter 627. I understand Qing Luo's intention. Long Yunzhan nodded. I agree. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she exchanged glances with him and smiled. It was because Long Yunzhan didn't reject her intention earlier. That was why Yiqing Luo passed the proof to those group members after they left the Magic Beast Forest. Long Yunzhan didn't reject this decision. The others would also agree and listen to her. The riddle which the two of them were playing earlier was because of this matter. Seeing that Long Yunzhan had already spoken, the other youngsters had their suspicions, but they still chose to believe in their judgment. They knew that Yiqing Luo and Long Yunzhan would absolutely not harm the world group. Lil Luo, today's biggest contributor is me. Don't tell me you shouldn't give me a little special reward? An arm went past Yiqing Luo's hand as it circled around her slender waist. Following that, a refreshing and elegant sandalwood fragrance assaulted their nostrils. The man's broad embrace was tightly pressed against the woman's soft back. His smooth lower jaw was pressed against Yiqing Luo's shoulder as his voice was deep and mellow. The other hand went past her other shoulder as it clasped her lower jaw. He forced her gaze to look in his direction. Yiqing Luo's thick and dense eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, her bright pupils reflected that peerless beauty of a face. That pair of watery peach blossom eyes gazed at her lovingly. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as she felt her cheeks turning red, as though her energy had been sucked dry by him. Evildoer. A living evildoer who could bring calamity to the country and people. Her peripheral vision saw those youngsters' ridiculing gazes, and Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned even hotter as she turned around and faced Dmo Xian as she pushed his chest. Nonsense, the biggest contributor is obviously me. Then I'll give you a reward. The man's voice had just ended when Yiqing Luo felt her lower jaw tightening. Following that, a warm touch covered her pink lips. That elegant sandalwood fragrance became more and more intense as it spread in her mouth. His kiss was strong and overbearing as it sealed her struggles and sealed her consciousness. What remained was only a kiss that was compatible with him. In Yiqing Luo's mind, it was as though there was a taut string that suddenly broke apart. A scorching flame was burning in his body. Bit by bit, it eroded her will. Yiqing Luo's little hand, which was on Dmo Xian's chest, gradually reduced in strength. Dmo Xian hugged her slender waist tighter and tighter, as though he wanted to melt her into his bones. Just as Yiqing Luo's consciousness started to blur and was about to sink into oblivion, her peripheral vision swept onto the youngsters who were standing by the side, staring at them in a daze. Yiqing Luo's face suddenly flushed red. Ah! Yiqing Luo didn't know where the energy came from as she pushed him away fiercely. Who wants your reward? This monster. If it was in private, it would be fine if the two of them were intimate. Kissing her in front of all these brothers, with so many pairs of eyes, how was she going to maintain her dignity in front of her brothers in the future? Yiqing Luo's face was so red that it looked like water was about to drip out. Qing Luo, it's alright, you guys carry on, just treat as if we don't exist. That's right, that's right. We're already used to being abused. You don't have to worry about us at all. If you want to kiss us, kiss us. If you want to hug us, hug us. The youngsters' ridiculing words came one after another. It was because of their ridicule that the atmosphere became relaxed once again. Today's exhaustion in the magic beast forest was swept away in the laughter. Hearing the youngsters' ridicule, Yiqing Luo's face turned red as she stared resentfully at Dmo Xian. But she saw him clutching his chest as his brows creased slightly. Chapter 628. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. She suddenly thought of something as the smile on her lips disappeared. She took quick steps towards Dmo Xian as she stretched out her hand and tugged his collar. You, come with me. As expected, with this tug, she could clearly feel that his body was slightly stiff. Although Dmo Xian maintained his smile and gentle gaze. But that slight crease on his brows, Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. Go back to the mansion and have a good rest. We'll be returning to the academy tomorrow. Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at those youngsters who were sniggering behind her as she couldn't be bothered to explain to them, I'll be back later, no need to wait for me. It's alright if you don't come back, we all understand. It's the last day of the holiday, just accompany the overlord well. Tomorrow Qing Luo still needs to go to the academy, overlord, you'd better take it easy. Yiqing Luo. Damn it, indeed she had no way to establish her prestige, these youngsters weren't afraid of her. Little Nine. Yiqing Luo shouted and Little Nine's tail shook. The palm-sized fox instantly turned into a huge fox. Under the group of youngsters, I understand, gazes, Yiqing Luo's face turned black as she grabbed Dmo Xian's hand and leapt onto Little Nine's back. Yiqing Luo's destination was that garden which Dmo Xian had given her the map of Death God Castle. The garden was still filled with flowers as hundreds of flowers bloomed. The fragrance in the air lingered around her nose. Standing in the middle of the flowers, Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles. His curved peach blossom eyes were long and narrow with a demonic charm. Little Luo, the same location, the same you and me, are you hinting me to do what we did here that day? His tone was extremely joyous. That pitch-black obsidian-like eyes started to spread out as it started to thicken. Yiqing Luo wasn't like the past, revealing a lady's coquettish side because of Dmo Xian's teasing. Her expression was grave as she grabbed Dmo Xian's extended wrist and with a tilt, she pressed him into the flowers. Yiqing Luo sat on Dmo Xian's abdomen as her hands tore his clothes. Dmo Xian caught the two little hands which were pulling randomly as he placed it by his lips and planted a kiss on it. Little Luo, are you trying to force yourself? His tone was evil, and his long and narrow eyes exuded a devilish charm that was incomparably alluring. Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as her face was still sunken, struggling to tug at his clothes. Little Luo, Dmo Xian's voice abruptly turned heavier as he tightened his grip on her wrist. Stop fooling around. Why are you hiding? Yiqing Luo sneered as her charming eyes were filled with chilliness. I forced myself on you, shouldn't you feel happy? If it was during normal times, Dmo Xian would definitely turn from guest to host. Indeed, I'm very happy. Dmo Xian stared into her eyes and spoke in a serious tone, but Lil Luo, you're a lady and a lady's reputation is very important. I hope that the relationship between us can be placed on our wedding night, and take it a step deeper. Pooh. Yiqing Luo's sneer grew thicker. Since when did Dmo Xian know what reputation was? He had always done things his own way and did not care about what others thought of him. Talk about honor with her now? But, I can't wait. Yiqing Luo's wrist nimbly flipped as she held Dmo Xian's hand, while her other hand speedily unbuttoned his clothes. A soft sigh which could not be heard came from the depths of Dmo Xian's throat. His clothes were open, revealing a muscular chest. But on that chest, there was an extremely glaring red, piercing Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 629. Why didn't you tell me you were injured? Yiqing Luo stared at the red gauze, her fingers trembling as she touched it. However, before he could touch the gauze, he retracted his hand while trembling. Dmo Xian was injured. The high and mighty Di Zun was injured. It's not a big injury. I'm fine. Dmo Xian's lips twitched slightly as he raised his hand to caress Yiqing Luo's fine black hair. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you would be worried. There was so much blood flowing from this wound, how could it be just a small injury? If it was just a small injury, a few pills could solve it. Why would there be so much blood? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled something. That map. The bloodstains on the map. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Your injury. Was it when you went to Death God Castle to help me draw the map, you got injured? That's right, the bloodstains on the map. Ever since Dmo Xian dashed into Death God Castle and brought her away from Zhu Wu Xian, she thought that she had guessed wrongly and assumed that Dmo Xian wasn't injured, hence she didn't probe further. If she hadn't noticed that something was wrong with his expression, she probably wouldn't have noticed it. A sense of vexation and guilt towards Dmo Xian arose from the bottom of her heart. She was not a qualified woman who could stay by Dmo Xian's side. She had never properly cared for Dmo Xian. It would only create one trouble after another for Dmo Xian. The more she thought, the tighter Yiqing Luo's heart became. There was a suffocating feeling in her throat. It was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even breathe smoothly. His nose felt sour, as if something was about to gush out of his eyes. No. Dmo Xian answered without any hesitation, seeing through the guilt and thoughts in Yiqing Luo's eyes. His long arm stretched out and pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. Don't let your imagination run wild, I'm fine. His reply was straightforward and decisive, but it also indirectly proved that this injury was indeed the injury suffered in Death God Castle. For her, he had been injured, and for her, he had stayed by her side with his injuries. He had been pretending to be fine because he didn't want her to worry. Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned red. How could this man be so foolish? Feeling heartache? Dmo Xian's fingers slowly brushed past Yiqing Luo's cheeks, his fingertips paused at the corner of her eyes. If you can't bear to let me feel pain, kiss me and it won't hurt anymore. You. Even at this moment, he could still act like a hooligan with a straight face. Yi Qing Luo stared at Dmo Xian as she suddenly pushed his hand away. He took out some pills and gauze from the profound phoenix ring. You knew that I would be worried, yet you still hid the fact that you were injured. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, her eyes filled with anger. You only let me know now, I'm even more worried. All right. She untied Dmo Xian's bloody gauze and threw it aside. Yi Qing Luo then looked seriously at the wound on Dmo Xian's chest. It was a wound caused by a sharp weapon. The wound was not deep, but it happened to be close to the heart. Fortunately, Dmo Xian managed to evade in time and did not suffer any fatal injuries. Sharp weapons. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as she was already certain that Dmo Xian's injury was caused when he was challenging the mechanisms in Death God Castle, when he triggered the mechanism. That was also such an intricate map. The route towards the exquisite pagoda was drawn out clearly, and every single mechanism was marked out clearly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had tried every single mechanism, how could it be drawn out so intricately? The contours of Dmo Xian's face were extremely gentle, and the gaze which he gazed at Yi Qing Luo was filled with tenderness and pampering. One was bandaging his wound, while the other was staring at her tenderly and sweetly. The breeze blew, as the flower petals danced. Pieces of flower petals were like dancing butterflies, lingering between the two of them. Chapter 630. After Yi Qing Luo was done with the bandaging, she helped Dmo Xian to adjust his clothes properly and was about to speak. His line of sight met with a calm sleeping face. A man with outstanding looks, no matter from which angle, was so handsome that it made one want to scream. Not knowing when, he had fallen into a deep sleep. He was in a deep sleep. Even when she slowly moved her body and laid down beside him, he didn't wake up. Usually, he was vigilant and could even sense a gust of wind. His injury was too serious. Yi Qing Luo's heart ached as she pursed her lips tightly, as she half propped up her body and leaned beside him, staring at his face. The man in his sleep, his brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but stretched out her hand and swept past the wrinkles between his brows, as she gently caressed it. Perhaps it was the softness of her fingers, perhaps it was the gentleness of her fingertips, perhaps it was the familiarity of her scent. That tightly knitted brows, slowly smoothed out. Lil Luo, A soft murmur spilled out from his thin lips. Following that, her hand was accurately held in the palm of the man's hand. His fingers tightened, as though he was holding the most precious thing in the world, tightly gripping it. Her heart suddenly increased the rate of its beating. Every time, it fiercely pounded against her throat. A gush of warmth slowly flowed from the bottom of her heart. She held that hand, slowly lowered her body, and planted a kiss on his pale thin lips. Silly girl. A helpless sigh spilled out from between her lips that were so tightly pressed together. The next day, Yi Qing Luo was woken up by Dmo Xian. She rubbed her eyes, got up and was about to tear open Dmo Xian's clothes, wanting to take a look at his wound, and at the same time help him change his dressing, but was stopped by Dmo Xian. She should go to the academy. Yi Qing Luo used both carrot and stick, but was unable to make Dmo Xian loosen his mouth, so she could only helplessly let him return to the palace to recuperate. She was going back to the academy today, so Dmo Xian need not worry about her leading the brothers on experience learning and getting injured. Sending Dmo Xian off on little nine with her eyes, Yi Qing Luo then returned to the mansion alone. The youngsters had long put on their academy uniforms, as they lined up neatly in the garden. When they saw Yi Qing Luo, they started to tease Yi Qing Luo that she really didn't return for the entire night. But teasing was just teasing, they still understood Yi Qing Luo's character very well. They were all clear that there was nothing between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. They were tactful enough not to intentionally ask where Dmo Xian had gone to. Amidst the laughter, everyone's serious mood from early in the morning also became relaxed. The 3 days of their holiday were spent in abundance. There were more than 10 youths who had successfully advanced a grade in these 3 days. As for those who did not advance, they could clearly feel that their physical fitness and overall strength had been greatly improved. This was the power that came from constantly fighting in dangerous situations. Qing Luo. Xiao Jin walked over with a space bag. Last night, Shi Ju came back with a space bag in his mouth. It was filled with. He took out a black suit from his pocket. The flame-like cherry blossom embroidery on his right sleeve was extremely obvious. Wasn't it the uniform that the Blue Dragon mercenary group people wore yesterday? It must be Yi Qing Luo's order for Shi Ju to retrieve these uniforms. Why did Yi Qing Luo want these uniforms? Could it be that she wanted them to wash it before wearing it? Not to mention that these uniforms were tattered in this round's experience learning, ugly and smelly. Just these uniforms, if those Blue Dragon mercenary group members wore them, they wouldn't want to wear them anymore. Chapter 631. Xiao Jin didn't understand why as he carried his space bag and turned around, calling the youngsters to retrieve firewood from the kitchen as he directly set up a fire in the courtyard. We've given Blue Dragon mercenary group 54 sets. Yi Qing Luo suddenly opened her mouth as she called out to Xiao Jin, before you burn it, count how many sets there are. These sets of clothes were indeed brought back by her. Even the group uniforms on those corpses who had died at the entrance of the Magic Beast Forest, Yi Qing Luo also asked Shi Ju to bring them back. She picked up the number of sets which Ji Tsang Tian had worn away. Based on Ji Tsang Tian's character, after he returned to his own camp and saw his disheveled self, then seeing those 30 over members returning, looking at the clothes they were wearing, he would recall the humiliation he had suffered in the Magic Beast Forest. He would definitely be fuming with rage. She asked them to change out of their clothes and throw them out of sight and out of mind. Yi Qing Luo wouldn't give them any chance to malign the world group. If one set of clothes was used, it could possibly cause a huge impact on the world group. Yi Qing Luo wanted to eliminate all possibilities. Xiao Jin seemed to have understood something as he laughed out loudly. You're the one who thought it through thoroughly. Burn. Burn all these clothes. Anyway, for the next 1 month, they wouldn't be able to wear the group uniform which belonged to them. They had plenty of time to customize a new batch of uniforms. The material and enchantment as well as the gravity belt had to be done meticulously. These were all things which Yan Xiaoyi had discussed with the tailor's shop early on. They only needed to wait for a month before they could collect it from the tailor's shop. Not long later, the courtyard was lit up with flames as pieces of uniforms were thrown into the flames. A total of 54 pieces, no more and no less. Xiao Jin was burning as he told Yi Qing Luo the numbers which he had counted. Yi Qing Luo nodded as her heart which was hanging in the balance was finally put down. Lighting a fire in the courtyard so early in the morning, are you trying to burn down this huge mansion? Suddenly an old but powerful voice was heard from the end of the courtyard. Following that, they saw an elderly dressed in a white robe walking over leisurely. It seemed as though he had just casually taken a step, but in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. Expert. This was absolutely an expert. The youngsters' gazes were fixed on that elderly. Why did he look a little familiar? Yi Qing Luo also had this feeling. He furrowed his brows and stared at the old man as he thought about it for a long time. In the end, he said with uncertainty, "Are you Holy Pirate?" The old man raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his grizzled hair. His eyes were bright. "After taking a bath, trimming my hair, and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me?" It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yi Qing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me. God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yi Qing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yi Qing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the holy pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon group might come to report to him. Yi Qing Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the world group, Yi Qing Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the world group's seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yi Qing Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yi Qing Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yi Qing Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yi Qingjian and Ling Fenghua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden, in broad daylight. Moreover, Yi Qingqian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yi Qingqian and Ling Fenghua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Ling Fenghua was Yi Qingqian's seventh sister and also Yi Qing Luo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals. This was the wrong view of the world. Yi Qingqian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally it would implicate Yi Qing Luo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yi Qing Luo, at the same time, they felt that Yi Qing Luo and Yi Qingjian were almost the same. After all, they were taught by the same father. But, after that, news of Yi Qing Luo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-Tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yi Qingqian, no one dared to bring Yi Qing Luo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and seventh miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy? How shameless. Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hips. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yi Qing Luo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today, aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shangguan Liuli. Chapter 633. You. Shangguan Liuli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect, how could Yiqing Luo still remain so calm? Yiqing Qian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile. Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shangguan Liuli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yiqing Luo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yiqing Qian did, she's shameless and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady and in front of everyone, you dare to say such shameless things that Yiqing Luo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yiqing Luo said the second point, Shangguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shangguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yiqing Luo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shangguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shangguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking non-stop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo's expression remained calm as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, are you sure that Yiqing Qian will be chased out of Three Springs City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule, regarding the second half of the rumor. I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yiqing Luo's meaning. She was being used by someone? Looking at Yiqing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuilan discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yiqing Jian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yiqing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yiqing Qian was shameless and Yiqing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yiqing Luo was able to gain Dmo Xian's favor, was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yiqing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yiqing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yiqing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughing stock of the entire Three Springs City. But Yiqing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor. We'll be able to see it soon. Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instant when Yiqing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage which was inlaid with sparkling crystals was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince Leng Fengying? Ever since Leng Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Leng Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school, they all went up to greet him. Leng Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish, his handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his looks, they would only think that he was a weak young man without the strength to truss a chicken, a soft-footed prawn that could be easily pinched. This kind of person easily made others feel close to him. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. But to be able to grow up in the royal family, to be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under Leng Fenghua's oppression, and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. Finally, after Leng Fenghua met with a mishap, every step he took was so natural. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that this second prince was someone who was easy to deal with. Shengguan Liuli saw Leng Fengying at one glance as her eyes shone, its second prince. That dainty face was an obvious bashfulness of a young lady meeting her sweetheart. She took quick steps forward and squeezed past those people who were flocking towards her as she pounced beside Leng Fengying, second prince. Leng Fengying, who had just flipped down the horse, had a smile on his face, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. He passed the reins to the footboy and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shengguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him with a beaming face. Second prince, you haven't come to Shengguan residence to see me for a long time. Her tone was filled with tenderness. The onlookers looked at the two of them with dubious gazes. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shengguan family. From time to time, he would go to the Shengguan residence to visit the daughter of the Shengguan housekeeper. Could it be that the second prince was going to marry into the Shengguan family? Fifth Miss Shengguan. Leng Fengying calmly retracted his hand as he silently pulled the distance between the two of them apart with a gentle smile. A few days ago I consulted Shengguan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village, and it has already started to be implemented. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shengguan family head. It's this prince's fault. In just a few words, he had completely explained the ambiguous meaning in Shengguan Liuli's words. Everyone was enlightened. It turned out that the second prince went to the Shengguan residence to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beituan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince who cared for the common people. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Leng Fenghua. If this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Leng Fengying, not too long in the future, Leng Fengying would use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. The moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words. Because Shengguan family head was once an official in the imperial court, hence he was in charge of this aspect. Chapter 635. However, Shengguan Liuli, who was fixated on her Prince Charming, did not bring her brain with her. Or rather, Shengguan Liuli had no brains at all. She totally didn't understand the meaning in Leng Fengying's words, nor did she notice the distance that Leng Fengying had pulled apart from her. The second prince cares about the people. Father will not blame you. Saying that, Shengguan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Leng Fengying's arm once again. Second prince, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shengguan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you. Hearing this sentence, Yiqing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shengguan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shengguan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yiqing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangguan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Ling Fengying, as well as her private ambiguous relationship with Ling Fenghua. She was certain that Ling Fengying would marry her. One must know that Shangguan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Ling Fengying. If Ling Fengying didn't marry her, Shangguan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Ling Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yiqing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangguan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. Fifth Miss Shangguan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent. Could it be that fifth Miss Shangguan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangguan residence to see you every day? His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding ding dong dong, the sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Ling Fengying immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangguan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Ling Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yiqing Qian. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. This woman was wearing a greenish-white academy uniform, and there were a few dazzling accessories on her waist. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. Her makeup was exquisite, and her deliberately trimmed eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. Her seemingly simple yet graceful hair was pinned with a dazzling hairpin and hair ornament. Wasn't this the Yiqing Qian whom the monarch had assigned to King Ping, the one who was going to follow King Ping to the fief? At this time, wasn't she already in the carriage arranged by the monarch and leaving Three Springs City? She actually wore the academy uniform and appeared in the Heavenly Academy. Moreover, he had come together with the second prince. For so many years, the second prince had always kept a low profile and had a good character. He had never had any bad rumors with any woman. If one were to say that Shangguan Liuli's ambiguous words had stirred up gossip in everyone's hearts, most people still did not quite believe it. But the minute they saw Yiqing Qian, their gossipy hearts started to boil. Second prince and Yiqing Qian. Who was Yiqing Qian? Second prince's future sister-in-law. She had a relationship with second prince's eldest brother. How did second prince get involved with Yiqing Qian? And from the looks of this situation, from second prince's attitude towards Yiqing Qian, it was obviously. Chapter 636. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She wanted to ask, the male god in her heart, holding the hand of the woman whom she despised from the bottom of her heart, walking arrogantly in front of her, how would she feel? Shangguan Liuli only knew that a chord in her brain had snapped. Suddenly, it exploded, leaving only a blank space. Her body had already started to move according to Shangguan Liuli's most genuine thoughts. She speedily walked in front of Ling Fengying, blocking his path as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Qian. Second prince, what's your relationship with this slut? The surrounding crowd stuck their heads out, expressing that they were extremely curious about the answer to this question. Fifth Miss Shangguan, what relationship I have with second prince, is none of your business. Yiqing Qian's brows rose as her lips curled into a contemptuous smile. A good dog doesn't block the way. Fifth Miss Shangguan, please move aside. You actually dare to call me a dog? Shangguan Liuli's cheeks flushed red, especially that smirk of ridicule in Yiqing Qian's eyes, pierced deeply into her eyes. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip tightly, suppressing the surging anger in her chest as she stubbornly looked at Ling Fengying, second prince. Don't be cheated by this vixen, she's simply a shameless slut. With a bam, Shangguan Liuli's petite body was sent flying. Yiqing Qian retracted her hand as that usually gentle white lotus face was filled with arrogance, an unconcealable arrogance. Shangguan Liuli, don't be so shameless when I give you face, who gave you the right to insult me? This action made the surrounding students gasp in shock. In their eyes, Yiqing Qian was a pure white lotus. Yiqing Qian was the #1 beauty in Three Spring City. She was beautiful, had high innate talent, had a gentle character and treated others with courtesy. In other words, she was a big white lotus who gathered all the advantages. This was the first time they saw Yiqing Qian revealing such an arrogant and haughty expression. This was also the first time they saw Yiqing Qian slapping someone without any explanation. Yiqing Luo was also slightly shocked. She squinted her eyes as she stared at Yiqing Qian with interest. It turned out that her big sister, who was like a white lotus, had completely darkened after experiencing this incident. But that's right. His reputation and whatnot were already ruined. No matter how Yiqing Qian acted, or how she acted as a white lotus, the people of Three Springs City wouldn't believe it, and neither would the people of the West Continent. Stealing his sister's fiancé was the same as stealing his sister's fiancé. Rolling around with his sister's fiancé was the same as rolling around with his sister's fiancé. Everything was the truth. There was no way to refute that. It would be better to just turn evil and not bother to wear that hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart, and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yiqing Qian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yiqing Luo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yiqing Luo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly, "You, just wait and see." Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yiqing Qian's provocation. From the time she heard the high-profound class discussing about Yiqing Qian and second princes hooking up, Yiqing Luo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yiqing Qian was still alive. As long as Yiqing Qian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yiqing Luo curious was, what conditions did Yiqing Qian set out to attract Leng Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yiqing Qian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yiqing Qian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yiqing Qian were more or less restrained. Shangguan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yiqing Qian actually hit him? Yiqing Qian, that slut, actually dared to hit her? Shangguan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground, as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yiqing Qian's face. "You slutty vixen, I asked you to hit me, I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince." Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young, she had only suffered a loss in Yiqing Luo's hands. At this moment, Yiqing Qian also dared to press on top of her. Especially Yiqing Qian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yiqing Luo onto Yiqing Qian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice, "Second prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing second prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault, I apologize on behalf of my sister. Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened, as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fangyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain, as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fangyi's hand, stomping her feet, she turned around and ran away crying. Second prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry. Shangguan Fangyi bowed his body slightly. No worries. Leng Fengming smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused 5th Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. I'm indebted to 5th Miss Shangguan's misplaced love. Shangguan Fangyi's face darkened. Leng Fengming saying these words in front of everyone totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him? Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Leng Fengming hadn't said these words, Shangguan Fangyi could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Leng Fengming totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yi Qingqian? Shangguan Fangyi was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yi Qingqian. But he discovered that Yi Qingqian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yi Qingqian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Fangyi lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran towards. Leng Fengming and Yi Qingqian held hands as he sent Yi Qingqian into the academy before he stopped in his tracks. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yi Qingqian a lot. But in Yi Qingluo's eyes, she only felt that Leng Fengming was completing a mission. A mission which he had discussed with Yi Qingqian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Leng Fengming didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Then, he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yi Qingluo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. Elder sister, eldest sister she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yi Qingqian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yi Qingqian was totally different from the Yi Qingqian in his memories. Don't bother about her. Yi Qingluo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now, she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you. Yi Fengyu was stunned. Alright, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu. Yi Qingluo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the school gate. Teacher Guiyu should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning. Sister, what are you going to do? Kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yi Qingluo didn't enter the academy but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yi Qingqian and Leng Fengming, so naturally no one noticed Yi Qingluo's disappearance. Yi Qingluo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the 3 evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yi Qingluo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered? As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Leng Fongying's gentle voice ringing behind her. "Yes, 7th Mississippi, what's the matter, second prince?" Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier, before Leng Fongying mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yi Qing Luo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Leng Fongying. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. 7th young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Leng Fongying was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yi Qing Luo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo covered her mouth and chuckled, her eyes were glowing. Second prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me? Of course there is, but... Yi Qing Luo dragged her words. Will you answer truthfully? Yes. Leng Fongying spat out a word without any hesitation. I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me. That pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yi Qing Luo, filled with sincerity. As though he was expressing his determination to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this, she totally had no impression of Leng Fongying at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Leng Fonghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Leng Fonghua. From the investigations, Leng Fongying was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average. Especially under Leng Fenghua's intentional oppression, his entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Leng Fongying was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. Chapter 639. From what Yi Qing Luo thought, Leng Fongying was much more dangerous than Leng Fenghua. The facts had proven that Yi Qing Luo had guessed correctly based on her own view of the royal family. She had taken the right step. However, would their cooperation be affected because of Yi Qing Qian? Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms over her chest. What's the relationship between you and Yi Qing Qian? As you can see. Leng Fongying replied without any hesitation. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. You call this an answer? What did he mean by the relationship she saw? In other words, no matter what she thought, the relationship was there, and he wouldn't deny it or admit it? You call that a truthful answer? Leng Fongying smiled but didn't say a word. Yi Qing Luo's eyes twitched as she turned around and left. 7th Miss Yi. Leng Fongying hurriedly blocked Yi Qing Luo's way. Although his facial features were not outstanding, there was a unique charm to his gentle face. I don't mean it in that way. Leng Fongying explained. A cold glint flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes as she squinted at the arm in front of her. If you don't have the sincerity to talk to me, then don't waste my time. I'm not that free to play riddles with you here. Leng Fongying was indeed a talent and his ability was much stronger than Leng Fenghua's. However, for so many years, under the oppression of Leng Fenghua, he was still able to form his own faction, and even after Leng Fenghua fell from power, he was able to obtain a voice of support. This also resulted in his habit of being cautious and secretive. And this point, towards Yi Qing Luo who liked to be clean and decisive, it was extremely irritating. Since she had chosen to cooperate with Leng Fongying, she had already paved a path for Leng Fongying to quickly destroy Leng Fenghua. He would no longer cooperate with anyone else. Furthermore, in the entire imperial family, who else but him could threaten his position? There was no doubt that the position of crown prince belonged to Leng Fongying. From Yi Qing Luo's point of view, since they were working together, then they should choose to trust each other and work together happily. Whereas until now, Leng Fongying still harbored suspicions towards her. Since they didn't trust each other, there was no need to continue their partnership. Seventh young mistress of the night, of course, I sincerely want to talk to you. Leng Fengming gave a gentle smile as he put down the arm which was placed horizontally in front of Yiqing Luo. I believe with 7th Miss Ye's intelligence, you will definitely be able to tell that Yiqing Qian and I are not that kind of relationship. Reason. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with him. Leng Fengying's eyelids drooped down as he shook his head. Forgive me for not being able to say. Can't say. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past his face. Because you want Yiqing Qian's power? Saying that, Leng Fengming looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment, as though he was in shock. How did she know? As expected, Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her expression turned grave. That's right, who wouldn't want Yiqing Qian's power? She was only a teenage girl, but she had already reached the earth-profound realm. If she trained well, with her talent, she would definitely become a rare genius girl in the world. Who didn't want to keep her for their own use? Especially, Yiqing Qian still had the dark forces as her backing. Thinking about it. Hence, Yiqing Qian made Leng Fengming sign a soul contract with the dark forces, using the power as bait, making use of Leng Fengying's identity and status to give herself a chance to make a comeback. The current Leng Fengming had just chased Leng Fenghua off the crown prince's position. He urgently needed to do something or use his own ability to prove that he was the only candidate for the crown prince's position. In this era where martial arts were revered and the strong were revered. Chapter 640. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The curve of her lips was extremely enchanting. Gu Pan's charming eyes raised slightly, outlining a long and narrow evil charm. Second Prince, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't cultivate your strength on your own, even if you forcefully use it on yourself, it won't be yours in the end. Leng Fengming was stunned as a glint circulated in his eyes. He had totally not expected that before he even said anything, Yiqing Luo had already guessed everything. Don't use this kind of judging gaze to size me up, I'm not your enemy. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Of course, we will not be in a cooperative relationship. Leng Fengming was just about to open his mouth when he stopped. 7th young Miss Yi, aren't we? The moment you got together with Yiqing Qian, the cooperation between us had ended. Yiqing Luo said straightforwardly, of course, you don't need to have any psychological burden. I will help you, not because I want to. Yes, at the end of the day, they were just using each other. Leng Fenghua wanted to harm her. Yiqing Qian wanted to return the scheme to her. She wanted to retaliate, and it wasn't as simple as killing the other party. Instead, it was to crush the opponent's mentality and destroy the things that they cared about bit by bit. As for Leng Fengming, he was just a chess piece to destroy Leng Fenghua. 7th young Miss Yi. Leng Fengying's gentle brows creased slightly as his tone turned anxious. We can have a good talk. He was an intelligent man and naturally understood that if he became enemies with Yiqing Luo, it would mean adding another strong opponent. His current foundation wasn't stable, and since Yiqing Luo was able to destroy Leng Fenghua, she naturally had the ability to destroy him. Leng Fengming had also heard from Yiqing Qian that Yiqing Luo was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It was definitely unwise to make an enemy out of her at this critical juncture. Thinking of this, Leng Fengying's tone turned even gentler. 7th young Miss kindness towards me 2 days ago, I have always remembered it in my heart. 7th young Miss, please give me a chance to repay you, alright. Not waiting for him to finish, Yiqing Luo had already interrupted him. Let Yiqing Qian marry Leng Fenghua and leave Three Springs City together. Leng Fengying's eyes dimmed slightly as his fingers clenched into a fist. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. 7th Miss, other than this, I can agree to any other request. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as she turned around and walked towards the front of the alley. Hearing the footsteps of the man behind her, she raised her hand and waved. Apart from this request, I don't need your help. The footsteps stopped. Yi Qing Luo continued, you can be assured that I have no interest in your royal family's matters. You can do whatever you like, but... She glanced sideways and her peripheral vision fell onto Ling Fengying as a cold intent flashed past her narrow and long eyes. If your war implicates my people, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy. Ling Fengying was stunned on the spot. That gaze, even though it was only a glance, caused one to shudder with fear. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This was what Yi Qing Luo conveyed to him. As long as he or Yi Qing Qian didn't offend her, she didn't have the time to go against them. This woman's personality was really hard to fathom. Ling Fengying clenched his fists tightly as he watched Yi Qing Luo leave, before he silently left the back alley. After Yi Qing Luo entered the academy, she didn't return to the devil class but headed straight towards the library pavilion. Today was the day when the students returned to the academy and quite a number of students headed over to the library pavilion to borrow books to read, or to verify the homework which the masters had assigned for the past 3 days. Chapter 641. Yi Qing Luo's arrival made the entire library pavilion fall into a state of silence. Many students' gazes were fixed on Yi Qing Luo. There were groups of students who started to discuss about Three Springs sect's matters in hushed voices. Especially earlier, the news of Yi Qing Qian being personally sent to the academy by Ling Fengying had already spread throughout the entire academy. Even Yi Qing Luo was being pointed at. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about other people's views as she walked towards the direction of the second floor. But she had just stepped onto the first step when she heard someone smashing a book on the table. Student Yi Qing Luo, don't you know the rules? Qing Qian. Another timid voice was heard. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and saw Yi Qing Qian standing beside a wooden table in the magical beast category book section. Her pretty face was cold, as though she was purely reminding Yi Qing Luo. And beside her, were 5 to 6 high profound class female students and Lu Shuelan, who was staring at Yi Qing Luo with a terrified expression. Vice President, towards those who don't abide by the Academy's rules, how should the Faculty Council punish them? Yi Qing Qian didn't see the fear in Lu Shuelan's eyes as she looked at Lu Shuelan with a smile. This was obviously directed at Yi Qing Luo. This was indeed directed at Yi Qing Luo. Qing Qian. Lu Shuelan's face turned slightly pale as her tone raised as she berated, Student Yi Qing Luo is a new student and seldom comes to the library pavilion, so naturally she doesn't know the rules here. Yi Qing Qian's reputation was already in a mess during this holiday. No matter where she went, she was given the title of slut. But after she returned to the academy, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Totally not bothered about the others pointing fingers at her. Furthermore, she was so overbearing that even she couldn't suppress Yi Qing Qian. Yi Qing Qian's red lips were like flames as her bright smile was different from the usual gentle like water, but it was covered with a layer of threatening coldness. Really? Then what Vice President means is, as long as you are a new student, you can casually violate the Academy's rules? I don't mean it in that way. Lu Shuelan's throat choked and under Yi Qing Qian's gaze, her legs turned soft. What was going on? Why did Yi Qing Qian suddenly become so gloomy? This pair of sisters from the Yi clan, each was weirder than the other. It's precisely because she's a new student and has violated the Academy's rules once, so she should be punished as a warning to others. Yi Qing Qian's voice grew colder and colder as she walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The students in the library didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stared dumbfoundedly at the scene of the Yi sisters killing each other. They were all sighing silently in their hearts. Surely this Yi Qing Qian couldn't have been driven crazy because her reputation was in a mess? Yi Qing Qian was the White Lotus representative in everyone's hearts. His ferocious appearance was really hard to accept for a moment. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the lady who was walking nearer to her, as her slightly creased brows rose. Elder sister is really free. The closer Yi Qing Qian got, the clearer Yi Qing Luo could see the faint black qi in her eyes. The dark force's energy was in Yi Qing Qian's body. However, what made Yi Qing Luo curious was, this dark force's power didn't seem to be the kind that controlled Yi Qing Ling and Yu Qipeng. But it was obediently attached to Yi Qing Qian's body. Instead it seemed like it had already merged into one with Yi Qing Qian, becoming a power that Yi Qing Qian could use. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo recalled the question she asked Leng Fengying. Yi Qing Qian used the dark force and Leng Fengying as bait to cooperate with him. Chapter 642. Yi Qing Qian's relationship with the dark forces, not simple. According to the rules of the library pavilion, other than the students from the high profound class and the class of gods who can enter the second level of the library pavilion, the students from the middle and lower classes can only read books on the first level of the library pavilion. Students like you, Devil class, you don't even have the qualifications to enter the library pavilion. Yi Qing Qian raised her chin in disdain, as she spat out the rules of the library pavilion word by word. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered, looking extremely innocent, but, I've already been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. Yi Qing Qian's face instantly turned black. Indeed, Yi Qing Luo had been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. However, that did not mean that she was qualified to go up to the second floor of the library pavilion. Instead, he was punished by the instructor to tidy up the library. But he had not expected this punishment to become Yi Qing Luo's capital to flaunt her prowess. Yi Qing Qian was so infuriated that the black qi in her eyes grew thicker, as her eyes were filled with hatred. Except for special circumstances, before you have obtained the qualification to enter the second story of the library pavilion, you barging in without permission is against the rules of the library pavilion. Towards Yi Qing Luo, how could she not hate her? She was obviously the number one beauty of the Three Springs City, the hope of the Three Springs sect, the goddess of the entire academy. Now, when everyone saw her, they would look at her with disdain. Behind her back, they kept pointing fingers at her and mocking her for being a slut. They mocked her for selling her body and herself in order to climb to a higher position. Obviously it was Leng Fenghua who seduced her first. It was Leng Fenghua who lied to her that he would marry her, give her the position of crown princess, and make her the future emperor-empress. Obviously, from the beginning to the end, she only had Leng Fenghua as a man. She and Leng Fengying were innocent. However, no one would believe her. In fact, as long as a man spoke to her or greeted her, people would stare at them and gossip about their illicit relationship. This feeling, who could stand it? Although the days when she wore a mask in the past were very tiring, however, no matter how tired he was in the past, his heart was content. She liked the feeling of people looking at her with admiration in their eyes. He liked the feeling of standing at the top of the clouds and being praised. But now, she had fallen from the clouds, into the abyss of hell, and could no longer climb back up. He was back to being himself and no longer had to wear a mask. But she wasn't happy. She couldn't accept it. There was a feeling of emptiness in his chest. All these were thanks to Yi Qing Luo. It was Yi Qing Luo who caused her to become like this. The more he thought about it, the more resentment he felt in his heart. Yi Qing Qian couldn't help but raise her hand, as she fiercely slapped Yi Qing Luo's calm and composed face. She wanted to destroy the face, the owner of the face. He wanted to dismember Yi Qing Luo into 1,000 pieces, so that she would never be able to reincarnate. That intense hatred was naturally felt by Yi Qing Luo. Her eyes overflowed with ridicule as she looked at Yi Qing Qian's venomous eyes. When she raised her palm to swing towards her face, she directly raised her leg and kicked towards Yi Qing Qian's chest. Yi Qing Qian's action was totally subconscious, and by the time she reacted and tried to avoid it, a sharp pain had already spread from her chest and she was like a kite with a broken string, flying out directly. Her eyes were filled with shock. When she landed on the ground, she quickly slammed her palm against the ground. His body spun a few times in the air before he stabilized his footing. Chapter 643. The library pavilion's rules are set by you? Just because you say I don't have the right to enter doesn't mean I can't enter? Are you from the faculty council? Vice President Lu Dai didn't even say a word. What are you butting in for? Question after question, like a bombardment, smashed towards Yiqing Qian with a pitter-patter. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as her lips curled upwards. You can't go up to the second story of the library pavilion, but I can go up without any obstruction, do you believe me? Yiqing Qian clutched her chest. Yiqing Luo's kick was totally without any reservation. Yes. As a high-profound class student, even if Yiqing Qian wanted to go up to the second story of the library pavilion, she had to get the approval from the library pavilion's management and obtain the time certificate to enter the second story. She was in so much pain that her brows creased into a bundle, her features were sinister as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. I'd like to see how you're going to go up to the second story of the library pavilion. To go up to the second story of the library pavilion, one must get the library pavilion's management to open the door. Yiqing Luo, who didn't have the right to enter, how would the manager possibly open the door for her? Want to make a bet? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yiqing Qian's pupils contracted slightly. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression, her heart suddenly stopped, somehow feeling that there seemed to be a trap. Don't dare. Yiqing Luo sarcastically tugged her lips. If you don't have the guts, then don't be a road-blocking dog. Saying that, Yiqing Luo turned around and walked towards the second story of the library pavilion. That sarcastic smile pricked Yiqing Qian's eyes. Her slender fingers clutched her sleeves tightly as her pretty face contorted. All right. I'll bet with you. She absolutely didn't believe that Yiqing Luo had the right to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Who didn't know how to put on an act? Yiqing Luo, who had already stepped onto the second-story staircase, had a flash of astonishment in her eyes as she quickly regained her original calmness and insolence. This astonishment was coincidentally caught by Yiqing Qian. Indeed, she was putting on an act. She became even more complacent. Say, how do you want to bet? This is the academy. If you want to bet money or something else, it will affect the atmosphere of the academy. Why don't you bet on something else? A clear voice came from the crowd. A slender figure walked out from the mantra book area. Xiao Yu. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Ever since the dormitory was destroyed, she and Lu Xiaoyu rarely met. Lu Xiaoyu swaggered over with a palm-sized pastry in her hand. As she chewed on the pastry, she said mischievously, if Qing Luo enters the second story, then you will kneel down in front of everyone and crawl all the way to the door, shouting, "Good sister, I'm wrong," 3 times, how about that? As soon as he said this, all the students in the library drew in a breath of cold air. This gamble, it was even more exciting than gambling. He was gambling with his pride. Xiao Yu, wouldn't this bet date be too? Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she quickly walked down the stairs and grabbed Lu Xiaoyu's arm. I'm fine. Lu Xiaoyu waved her hand with a calm face. I've just returned to the academy, so I need something happy to stimulate the students' passion for learning. Just treat it as entertainment. But, I'll bet. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to finish stammering, Yiqing Jian had already opened her mouth. At this moment, Yiqing Jian had already determined that Yiqing Luo was putting on an act. She wanted Yiqing Luo to kneel down in front of everyone, and wanted Yiqing Luo to crawl out of the library pavilion's entrance. She wanted Yiqing Luo to not be able to lift her head up in front of everyone. Bet. 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 The surrounding students saw Yiqing Jian nodding her head without any hesitation, and this bet was so interesting, so they were all interested. All of them cheered with their arms raised. Chapter 644. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly, full of sarcasm. I'm thinking for eldest sister's reputation. Her words paused, as though she had misspoken, as she covered her pink lips and shook her head. I forgot, eldest sister has no reputation to speak of. These words pierced Yiqing Qian's smile, as it froze on her face. Her fingers clenched tightly, as the veins on her forehead popped out. Stop the nonsense. Are you going to bet or not? Eldest sister is already embarrassed enough, are you sure you want to bet so much? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, as she sneered at her. Moreover, whether I go up to the second story of the library pavilion or not, has nothing to do with eldest sister. Yiqing Qian was pierced by Yiqing Luo's words, as her pretty face was covered with a layer of frost. The black qi in the depths of her beautiful eyes formed a whirlpool. Student Yiqing Luo, this is the academy, I cannot protect you in front of so many students just because you're my sister. Yiqing Qian clenched her teeth fiercely. If you can go up without any obstruction, I will kneel down right now. Looked like, Yiqing Qian had hardened her heart, to embarrass Yiqing Luo in public. Yiqing Luo curled her lips in disdain, as she scoffed. Thinking of using the same method to ruin her reputation. Was it that easy? Even if her reputation was in a mess, and her temperament had a huge change, but this shell, was still this shell. Her intelligence was still low. How many times had she suffered losses in her hands? But she still didn't know how to restrain herself. Not a single bit of improvement. Yiqing Luo didn't say anything more, as her lips hung an enchanting smile, as she turned around and walked up the stairs. All the students in the library pavilion had their gazes concentrated on Yiqing Luo. Seeing her step by step, she walked up to the entrance of the second story of the library pavilion, and stopped. The door of the second story of the library pavilion was carved with numerous totems of books, and on the door handle hung a fist-sized lock. There were only 2 keys to open this lock. One was in the director's hand, and the other was in the library pavilion administrator's hand. Yiqing Qian's face was filled with an unconcealable smile. Without the key, how would Yiqing Luo enter? By the time the administrator discovered that all the students had created such a ruckus in the library pavilion, he would definitely throw the troublemaker, Yiqing Luo, out directly. By then, Yiqing Luo would kneel down and complete the bet. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Teacher, help me open the door to the second story. Yiqing Luo stood in front of the door and shouted. Teacher? Who was it? The students looked left and right, puzzled. The meaning of teacher was different from teacher. The headmaster was the one who taught and guided the students. As for teachers, it was to express the respect a student had for a certain elder in the academy. Who was this teacher he was referring to? Just as everyone was guessing, they heard a deafening voice that sounded like a great bell coming from afar. He's here, he's here. Soon after, the librarian of the book collection pavilion walked over with big strides. That fierce face didn't have the usual irritation and anger. Manager? The students were astonished as they looked at the administrator, who had always had a bad temper and was always shouting at the slightest thing, walking towards Yiqing Luo. Then, the librarian smiled. Student Yi, you came to the library to study as soon as you arrived. What a diligent child. What the hell? This was definitely King hallucination. The fierce and hot-tempered administrator, actually smiled at Yiqing Luo? Yiqing Qian's face instantly turned pale. She staggered backwards a few steps, but luckily she was supported by the high-profound class students in time. She had been tricked by Yiqing Luo again? The administrator's attitude was obviously on Yiqing Luo's side. Chapter 645. Abuse of Authority. The administrator's gaze shifted onto Yiqing Qian's face as his expression turned ferocious. Great. Since you say I'm abusing my authority, then report me to the director right now. Yiqing Qian's ears were ringing from the booming voice. Her petite figure swayed slightly as she looked at Yiqing Luo and shook her head in disbelief. Impossible, she's a waste-class devil-class student, she has no right to go to the second story of the library pavilion. Whether I have the right or not, it's not up to you to decide. The administrator took out the key and directly opened the door to the second story. It's because there are meddlesome students like you, disturbing the other students from reading and discussing their assignments. After the door to the second story opened, the administrator's tall and sturdy body moved to one side as he smiled at Yiqing Luo. Student Yi, go in first, don't let. He paused and gave a silly laugh, don't wait too long. Yiqing Luo's motive for going to the second story of the library pavilion was definitely to meet Ghost Doctor. The administrator naturally didn't dare to stop her. Even if this matter reached the director, he wasn't afraid. Ghost Doctor had personally acknowledged her as his disciple, so the director couldn't stop her. Ever since he knew that Yiqing Luo was Ghost Doctor's disciple, the administrator became more and more respectful towards her. Of course, there was also his fondness towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo had once saved his pair of eyes from Ghost Doctor's hands. Yiqing Luo was the first person who called him teacher. In Heavenly Academy, he had been managing the library pavilion for decades. Wasn't it his fondness towards the academy and his fondness towards these books which persisted till now? In his eyes, the students in the academy who entered the library pavilion were considered as his students. However, the Heavenly Academy had gathered elite students from all over the world. All of them had distinguished statuses and had been looking down on others since young. When they arrived at the library pavilion, no one paid any attention to him, only treating him as a librarian. It was to the extent that later on, the students who came to the library pavilion didn't pay any attention to him. As time went by, the administrator began to put on a ferocious expression to intimidate the students. But in this way, he had completely lost the students' respect towards him. Thank you, teacher administrator. Yiqing Luo's smile turned gentle. She knew that right from the start, the administrator had noticed the conflict here. The administrator was probably here to dissuade them. After that, he heard her proposing a bet with Yiqing Qian and understood what she meant, so he purposely didn't appear. The administrator waved his hand. It's nothing. The two of them exchanged words one after another, making the surrounding students keep on guessing the relationship between Yiqing Luo and the administrator. As for Yiqing Qian, her face was so pale that she almost collapsed onto the ground. The high-profound class students who were supporting her let go of her upon seeing the administrator's appearance and fled from the crowd's attention. Elder sister, I'm still waiting for you to kneel down, crawl to the library pavilion's entrance and shout, I'm wrong, 3 times to me. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest, as she gave an amused smile. This slut, sure enough, he was plotting against her. Yiqing Qian stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo and the administrator knew each other, so she could make the administrator abuse his power. But Yiqing Luo intentionally revealed that kind of expression to confuse her judgment. How could she possibly kneel? How could she possibly admit her mistake to Yiqing Luo? Yo, elder sister, are you thinking of going back on your words? Yiqing Luo's eyes blinked as her index finger pressed against her pink lips, as she nodded thoughtfully. I had long guessed that elder sister would not admit it. After all, elder sister is used to lying. Chapter 646. The students all nodded their heads in agreement. Yiqing Qian was able to snatch her sister's fiancé and even seduce her sister's fiancé's biological brother. What face did she have? Overbearingly wanting to bet with Yiqing Luo. After she lost, she refused to admit to it and wanted to go back on her words. She was really invincible when one was shameless. The students' faces were filled with disdain as they looked at Yiqing Qian with disgust. This kind of improper three-views matter, even if it was in the 21st century, was something that the world would not tolerate. Moreover, it was in Nirvana realm. Even if Yiqing Qian had Ling Feng Ying's protection, it was unable to change other people's impression of her. Disgust was disgust. Disgust was disgust. They seemed to have forgotten that the one who suggested the bet was Yiqing Luo. This point, no one would care about. How can we forget about it? Hasn't Master always taught us to be honest and trustworthy? Especially student Yiqing Qian is a high profound class student and is the academy's role model. If student Yiqing Qian were to take the lead and teach the other students how to be sore losers and turn hostile. Lu Xiaoyu gave a light humph as she used Yiqing Qian's original words to counter. If this were to spread to the faculty council or the director's ears, student Yiqing Qian would probably have to bear the responsibility. That's right. As a high profound class student, every action and action represents the high profound class, represents the heavenly academy. We low profound class students like to imitate the high profound class students' mannerisms and actions. Student Yiqing Qian is teaching us what's called turning hostile and turning hostile. When I saw Yiqing Qian coming to the academy, I only thought that her face was extremely thick, but now I know that she totally has no face at all. One by one, the students chimed in passionately. Yiqing Qian's beautiful eyes turned gloomy as she clenched her fists so tightly that her fingers turned white and green veins popped out on her forehead. Lu Shuelan heard the students around her shouting intensely as her expression turned gloomy. Qing Qian, you're her elder sister, so there's no need to kneel down. Just apologize to her. If these students were to continue making a ruckus, the high profound class's reputation would be completely ruined. Shut up. Yiqing Qian glanced at Lu Shuelan coldly as her eyes turned chilly. Lu Shuelan was shocked as a flash of astonishment flashed past her eyes. Yiqing Qian dared to shout at her? Ever since she became the substitute vice president of the faculty council, no one dared to speak loudly to her. Lu Shuelan's face instantly turned pale. Yiqing Qian. Say that again. Scram. Yiqing Qian's sinister facial features revealed a chilly intent as her murderous intent was revealed. Flicking her sleeves, she turned around and headed towards the direction of the library pavilion's entrance. She walked very fast, wanting to escape from this place where everyone was making fun of her and mocking her. Lu Shuelan was thoroughly enraged. Yiqing Qian's arrogance was simply a slap on her face. If she didn't teach Yiqing Qian a harsh lesson in front of everyone, wouldn't others think that she, the acting vice president, was easy to bully? Yiqing Qian. You dare to insult the staff of the faculty council. Now I will represent the faculty council to bring you to the faculty council and let you recall every rule of the Heavenly Academy. Lu Shuelan took quick steps forward and was just about to stop Yiqing Qian. But he heard Yiqing Qian suddenly moaning in pain as her knees fell heavily onto the ground. It was indeed heavy. When the surrounding students heard the sound of kneeling onto the ground, they all felt a pain in their knees. A heart-wrenching pain. Yiqing Qian's hands were propped up on the ground as her palms were rubbed till a bloody scar appeared. She was in so much pain that her face was filled with tears as her expression was sinister. Lu Shuelan was also stunned by this intense sound of kneeling onto the ground as she stood rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do as she looked at Yiqing Qian. Yi. Qing. Luo. Chapter 647. A cornered dog will jump over the wall, don't force me. That gaze, was filled with murderous intent. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as she gave a light smile. Then why don't you jump for me to take a look? You. Was she scolding her as a dog in a roundabout way? Yiqing Qian gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke as the black chi in her eyes continued to revolve around her pupils, gathering. Enough. You're making a ruckus in the library pavilion, what a scandal. Suddenly, an imposing voice was heard from the entrance of the library pavilion, filled with extreme coldness. The students' gazes followed the voice and saw two figures walking in from the entrance. The lady's figure was tall and slender, her cold face was covered with frost, emitting an awe-inspiring aura. The man's figure was slender, beautiful and tall, that face was exquisite and refined, his expression so gentle as though water could be squeezed out of it. This kind of cultured elegance came from his bones. It wasn't the kind of gentleness that Leng Fengying showed on his face. The lady, Lu Shuiyu. The man, Faculty Council President, Si Yenmu. These two appeared at the same time, causing all the students to exclaim in shock. They were still young, their attention was too easily attracted by others, and their emotions were easily led by others. Just a second ago, they were still filled with righteous indignation, berating Yi Qingqian for being shameless, but the next second, they were already respectfully greeting Si Yenmu, the president of the faculty council. This mysterious and unfathomable, elusive Sir President. Today he actually took the initiative to appear in public. The students seemed as though they were injected with chicken blood, as they were extremely excited. President, sister. Lu Shuilan trembled when she saw the both of them walking in together, as she timidly shrunk to one side. Lu Shuiyu didn't bother about Lu Shuilan, only using her icy cold gaze, sweeping past the crowd, finally falling onto Yi Qingluo, you again. Yo, isn't this vice president? Yi Qingluo's tone was filled with sarcasm. Lu Shuiyu's cold eyes narrowed slightly. Yi Qingluo, the library pavilion is an important place for students to read and learn, not a place for you to be competitive. Yi Qingluo couldn't help but laughed out, Vice President, this sentence, you should say to the person kneeling beside you. Lu Shuiyu frowned, lowering her head to look at Yi Qingqian who was kneeling not too far away. Not knowing if it was because of anger or pain, Yi Qingqian's delicate body kept trembling. A few strands of her meticulously coiffed hair had become disheveled, sticking to her sweaty cheeks. He looked to be in an extremely sorry state. Lu Shuiyu's face sunk as she walked over and bent down to help her up. As he helped her up, he shot a gloomy glare at Yi Qingluo, as though he was interrogating her. Vice President, don't worry. As for me, I'm broad-minded and magnanimous. I won't bicker with my elder sister. Yi Qingluo blinked her innocent eyes as she smiled charmingly. What's more, eldest sister has already knelt down to apologize, let's just forget about this matter. His words caused the corners of everyone's lips to twitch uncontrollably. Yi Qingqian almost spat out a mouthful of blood that was stuck in her throat. Calling her shameless? Who's the real shameless one here? It had reached the pinnacle of shamelessness, okay. Gambling is strictly prohibited in the academy. Lu Shuiyu berated in a deep voice, this time, because you didn't gamble with money or anything overboard, the faculty council will not pursue further. But don't do it again. After all, she was the vice president for 5 years and her prestige was right there. The moment Lu Shuiyu spoke, the entire library pavilion turned silent. Chapter 648. A series of arrangements were made in an orderly manner. After Yi Qingqian was carried down, the atmosphere in the entire library pavilion was still chilly and a little scary. Yi Qingluo remained calm and unruffled as she squinted her eyes, as her back leaned against the second story's door, as she shot a glance at Lu Shuiyu. This Lu Shuiyu was indeed more suitable for this position than Lu Shuilan. This kind of domineering and dignified aura destined her to be a leader. Lu Shuiyu was smart enough. After fighting with her a few times, Lu Shuiyu had a rough idea of her character. He knew that at this time, he could not drag the matter onto her. Otherwise, it would be like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. So when Lu Shuiyu interfered in this matter, it was a series of preaching, every single word and sentence was reasonable, and she didn't intentionally target Yi Qingluo. Not only had she minimized the matter, she had also successfully covered up the matter of Yi Qingqian refusing to acknowledge the bet. You want to say that Yi Qingqian can't afford to lose? Didn't he kneel? As for why he didn't crawl to the door and shout, "My dear sister, I was wrong," it was because Lu Shuiyu had arrived in time to resolve this farce. If she were to stop Lu Shuiyu and not let Yi Qingjian leave. If this matter were to spread to the other students' ears, it would only make them feel that Yi Qing Luo was overbearing, forcing their own eldest sister to kneel down in public. They might even feel that Yi Qing Luo was narrow-minded and didn't know how to think for Three Springs sect. After all, Yi Qingqian was the daughter of the Three Springs sect. Wouldn't the Three Springs sect be even more humiliated? He had to admit that Lu Shuiyu's move was very good. "What are you still doing here?" Lu Shuiyu glared at the students around her. As soon as he finished speaking, the students immediately dispersed. Lu Xiaoyu also left under Yi Qing Luo's hint, turning back every 3 steps. Only the few of them were left at the top of the stairs. Lu Shuiyu frowned and turned her head to look at her younger sister, whose face was pale and whose eyes were filled with fear. "Shuilan, you." She paused and sighed helplessly. "Elder sister, I didn't do it on purpose." Lu Shuilan lowered her head. She had always been afraid of her elder sister. Lu Shuiyu was too outstanding. She was so outstanding that the entire Lu family only had eyes for Lu Shuiyu. Ever since she was young, Lu Shuilan had grown up under Lu Shuiyu's shadow. She was afraid of the powerful Lu Shuiyu and hated the powerful Lu Shuiyu. "Acting Vice President, I have already discussed it with the elders. Thank you for your hard work for the time being." Si Yanmu, who had been silent the whole time, said with a warm smile. Lu Shuilan's body slightly swayed, and her face instantly became deathly pale. This is, removing her from her position as acting vice president? This is, did he intend to make Lu Shuiyu the vice president again? Then what was all the hard work she had put in these past few days? In fact, everyone knew very well in their hearts. Lu Shuiyu and Si Yanmu appeared together in public. What did it indicate? It was obvious. However, Lu Shuilan still couldn't accept this news when she heard it. "Little sister, you've worked hard." Lu Shuiyu gently hugged Lu Shuilan's shoulder and patted it. Lu Shuilan's body trembled. She raised her eyes to look at Lu Shuiyu and suddenly chuckled. She pushed Lu Shuiyu away and ran out of the library. Yi Qing Luo kept a teasing smile on her face as she stared at them. Looked like it wasn't only her Yi family's brothers and sisters who had hidden turbulence. The other families were the same. "Student Yi Qing Luo, in future, please continue to take care of me." Lu Shuiyu met Yi Qing Luo's gaze as her red lips were dyed with a smile. Chapter 649. The minute she stepped onto the second story of the library pavilion, the door was shut. Yi Qing Luo walked directly into the pill refining room. Pushing the door open, Zhang Xian walked into the pill refinery and looked around. It was a mess, as if someone had ransacked the place. She didn't see Ghost Doctor anywhere. Yi Qing Luo had nothing else to do, so she rolled up her sleeves and started to tidy up the pill refining room. Gradually, she had already sorted out a pattern and the movements of her hands became faster and faster. Towards these medicinal herbs in the pill refining room, she was able to accurately call out their names, as well as their effects and where they were grown. Just 1 hour later, the entire pill refining room had once again regained its tidy and clean look. Ghost Doctor had not returned yet. Yi Qing Luo guessed that Ghost Doctor might be refining pills in the secret room. Refining a pill was indeed a matter that required a lot of mental and physical effort. She found a few books on concocting medicine on the bookshelf and started to read. Profound Ice Immortal Root and Infant Grass had already been taken away by her, so she could start refining the pill for Ziling that lass's legs. Thinking of that lass, she hadn't had the chance to meet her when she returned to the Yi family during the holidays, so she wondered how she was doing now. Yi Qing Luo thought of Ziling limping as she walked towards her step by step, as she hid the complicated emotions in her eyes and buried her head to read the books. For Ziling, she must achieve 100% success rate. Unknowingly, time flew past. Yiqing Luo had already finished reading 2 pill refining books and was preparing to take the 3rd book when she heard the pill refining room's door being pushed open. Senior Ghost Doctor. Yiqing Luo smiled as she turned back to greet him. But she heard a sound of a heavy object falling onto the ground. Ghost Doctor leaned against the wall as he sat on the ground. That white robe fluttered and his right sleeve was already stained with blood. Yiqing Luo immediately put down the book in her hands and walked over in quick steps. Senior Ghost Doctor. Close the door. Ghost Doctor's pale old face was drained of blood. He leaned against the wall and shifted to the side, revealing the half-open door. His right sleeve followed his movement and started to ooze more blood. Yiqing Luo speedily closed the door and used one hand to support Ghost Doctor's body from the left side, supporting him to the table to lie down. Yiqing Luo's expression was solemn as she speedily tapped on Ghost Doctor's acupoint twice, and after the blood stopped, she got up and walked to the other table. Soon, he came over with some gauze and some powder to stop the bleeding. Yiqing Luo buried her head and started treating Ghost Doctor's wound. The Ghost Doctor's shoulder had been pierced by a sharp weapon. His flesh had been flipped over, and his white bone could be seen. It looked extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she had many questions in her mind, but she didn't open her mouth to ask. The Ghost Doctor herself was extremely powerful. There were probably less than 5 people in the entire West Continent who could injure the Ghost Doctor. Who could it be that could injure the Ghost Doctor? Ghost Doctor narrowed his old eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. This little girl was indeed different from ordinary girls. When he first noticed her, it was because of her talent in alchemy and her outstanding memory that allowed her to complete his tasks in the shortest time possible. Of course, the main reason why he accepted her as a disciple was because of the teleportation secret technique she displayed. Now, he truly felt that it wasn't a bad idea to have a disciple by his side. This girl was too smart to ask questions that she shouldn't. She knew when to advance and when to retreat, and was sensible. Looking at the way she bandaged his wound and the way she applied the medicine, it was accurate and skilled. But moments later, after the acupoint was released, the bleeding from the wound had already stopped. Senior Ghost Doctor, go change your clothes. Yiqing Luo kept the gauze and medicinal herbs. Chapter 650. Ghost Doctor slowly straightened his body. The long robe on him, as it was missing the right sleeve, looked extremely loose. He narrowed his eyes, as he took a look at the bandage on his shoulder. This wound was bandaged very well, the medicine used and the dosage were extremely accurate. Not only did it speedily stop the bleeding, it also stopped the pain. As long as the range of movement wasn't too big, the wound on his shoulder didn't feel any bit of pain. He had taken in a disciple. What a treasure. Ghost Doctor went to the secret room to change his clothes, while Yiqing Luo cleaned up the messy table, as well as the blood stains on the ground. After she finished cleaning, she still hadn't seen Ghost Doctor return. Yiqing Luo frowned. Could it be that, because of his shoulder injury, he couldn't even change his clothes? Just as she was about to ask Ghost Doctor if he needed any help, she saw Ghost Doctor, who had already changed into a loose white robe, walking out. He who had changed his clothes, had his hair combed again. Other than his slightly pale complexion, he looked much more spirited. Senior Ghost Doctor, can I enter? Yiqing Luo pointed to the secret room. The secret room was Ghost Doctor's secret base. It was the place to refine pills. Other than the first time Yiqing Luo entered the secret room, after she accidentally fell down, she was forbidden from entering the secret room. After all, to an alchemist, the secret room to refine pills was an extremely important place. Ghost Doctor nodded his head slightly, as he turned around and walked back. Yiqing Luo followed closely. After entering the secret room, Yiqing Luo didn't act like what Ghost Doctor had imagined, to borrow his pill furnace to refine pills. Instead she walked directly to the side of the blood-stained robe which he had changed out of, as she bent down to pick up the robe. Following that, Yi Qing Luo took a spark from the torch at the corner of the secret room, and burnt that robe. Ghost Doctor's pupils contracted slightly, as he went into a daze for a moment, as he concealed the deep thoughts in his eyes. This young lady was really meticulous in her thoughts. As though noticing Ghost Doctor's gaze, the young lady who was burning the robe glanced sideways. As she smiled, Senior Ghost Doctor came back injured, and asked me to close the door of the pill refining room. Apparently you don't want anyone to know about your injury, or perhaps you're avoiding someone's eyes and ears. The young lady's clear sweet voice was gentle and melodious. This blood-stained shirt will expose the fact that you're injured. Burning it is the best way. Yi Qing Luo watched as the white robe was burnt to ashes before she swept the ashes to the bottom of the cauldron and slowly stood up. You don't want to ask me? The Ghost Doctor looked curiously at the calm young girl. At this moment, the Ghost Doctor no longer had her usual coldness and impatience. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she replied calmly, to be able to hurt Senior Ghost Doctor, he must be someone whom I can't afford to offend. I'm not able to seek revenge for Senior Ghost Doctor, and will bring about a fatal disaster to myself, so I might as well not know anything at all. The more you know, the faster you die. Before she had enough power, even if she knew the person who had hurt the Ghost Doctor, and knew the grudge between the Ghost Doctor and that person, there was nothing she could do. Ha, ha, what an interesting girl. The Ghost Doctor laughed as he shook his head. This smile tugged at the muscles on his shoulders, causing him to feel a faint pain. Little girl, you came to look for me as soon as you entered the academy. What's the matter? Perhaps it was because of his injury, or perhaps it was because of the change in his view towards Yi Qing Luo, but the Ghost Doctor's expression faintly revealed some amiability. Yi Qing Luo nodded. I want to ask, does Senior Ghost Doctor know? 10 years ago, the god thief who had once stormed the Nirvana realm, but had fallen in Death God Castle? Chapter 651. After Ghost Doctor saw her executing the blink movement, he recognized the blink movement's secret art at one glance and told her the origin of the blink movement's secret art. Whereas God Thief also recognized the blink movement's secret art at one glance. Yi Qing Luo was clear that there was actually no connection between the two. But not knowing why, she somehow felt that Ghost Doctor and God Thief seemed to have the same emotions and feeling towards this blink movement's secret art. She wondered if it was a misperception. Yi Qing Luo had her doubts, so she might as well ask Ghost Doctor directly. On hearing the two words, God Thief, Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed slightly as he replied without any hesitation, never heard of him. Yi Qing Luo didn't ask any further. Ghost Doctor had never heard of God Thief's name before, which was very normal. Even Dmo Xian's reputation was just heard of, so it was imaginable how much of an otaku Ghost Doctor was. You know him? Ghost Doctor raised his white brows as he asked in reply, why did you think of asking me? Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she played it down. 3 days of holiday, I heard of God Thief's name when I was training outside, so I just casually asked. Casually? Just because of this question, she specially came to the pill refining room to look for him. This was called casually? Just at this moment, the duo's expressions suddenly changed. Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched as she heard someone approaching the pill refining room's footsteps. Her expression was grave as she exchanged glances with Ghost Doctor, and her body had already speedily moved towards the entrance of the pill refining room as she dashed out, pressing the mechanism to seal the entrance. By the time Yi Qing Luo stood by the table and picked up a stalk of medicinal herb, the pill refining room's door suddenly opened. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes in astonishment as she saw 3 elderly dressed in elder robes standing at the entrance. Yi Qing Luo recognized one of them. The leading elder was not anyone else, but Elder Yunxiang. As for the 2 elders behind him, Yi Qing Luo had met them once before, so she didn't have a deep impression of them. Student Yiqing Luo? Yun Xiang's vision swept around the pill refining room as his gaze fixed onto Yiqing Luo. Why are you here? This is my master's pill refining room, why can't I be here? Yiqing Luo put down the medicinal herb as her eyes narrowed. Where's Ghost Doctor? Yun Xiang's expression sunk slightly. He had not expected this wretched lass to really become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Ghost Doctor's character was actually able to get along with Yiqing Luo peacefully. Just entered the secret alchemy room to refine a new medicinal pill. Yiqing Luo replied without any change in expression, is there anything the three elders need from my master? Refining pills? Yun Xiang frowned and looked around suspiciously. He has always been in the pill refining room? When I arrived, Master was already in the medicine refining chamber. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as a sliver of impatience and vigilance surfaced on her face. Elder Yun Xiang has now set his sights on my master? Yun Xiang's expression became extremely ugly. Yiqing Luo intentionally wanted him to become enemies with Ghost Doctor, making use of Ghost Doctor's identity and status to deal with him? Yun Xiang clenched his fists and scoffed, don't talk nonsense. I was only ordered to check if all the teachers and staff have returned to the academy. Following orders? Investigate? Yiqing Luo's half-squinted eyes were flowing with light as it refracted a piercingly cold ray. Yun Xiang's orders, other than Great Elder Yun Rui, was the dean. It must be the headmaster's order to investigate the teachers and staff. Just a simple investigation only? Most probably, Ghost Doctor's injury was. I asked you to differentiate the medicinal herbs and you're making a ruckus. If you can't settle down, then scram out. A stern shout was heard from the secret alchemy room, and following that, the secret room's door suddenly opened. Ghost Doctor stood at the entrance with a sunken face as he berated impatiently. Chapter 652. Sir Ghost Doctor. When the three elders saw Ghost Doctor, their expressions immediately turned respectful. Ghost Doctor's face sunk as his expression turned extremely ugly. Get out if you have anything to say. Don't disturb me while I'm refining pills. The three elders nodded their heads as they respectfully closed the door of the pill refining room. At the moment when the door closed, Yun Xiang's vision subtly glanced at Yiqing Luo, revealing a few probing looks. By the time the pill refining room regained its silence, Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at Ghost Doctor, who pretended that nothing had happened. Perhaps he had taken some pills as his complexion was extremely normal, not as pale as before. There wasn't a single bit of blood stench on him. At this moment, Yiqing Luo was already certain that Ghost Doctor's injury had something to do with Director. Moreover, Director was starting to suspect Ghost Doctor. Didn't Director respect Ghost Doctor a lot? Otherwise he wouldn't specially set up a pill refining room for Ghost Doctor on the second story of the library pavilion. Between the two of them, what was their relationship? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled the conversation between Director and a certain guardian not long ago. Recalling that Director wanted to silence her, but ultimately the main reason was because of Ghost Doctor's face, so he stopped. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly stopped. Isn't it said that it's best not to know anything? Ghost Doctor looked at Yiqing Luo's increasingly grave expression as he sighed softly. Yiqing Luo walked over and supported Ghost Doctor back to the pill refining room as she replied, whatever Senior Ghost Doctor does, he has his own reasons, so I won't make any guesses. What did you call me? Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she pursed her lips. Senior Ghost Doctor. Ghost Doctor seemed displeased. How did those old men call me earlier? Yiqing Luo's eyelids drooped as she naturally understood Ghost Doctor's meaning. Ghost Doctor had sincerely accepted her and wanted to take her in as his disciple. Yiqing Luo admitted that she indeed wanted to learn more pill refining skills from Ghost Doctor. But she was unable to become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Unable to betray the master in her heart. In Yi Qing Luo's heart, master could only be Old Man Tsang. When she came to this strange world, it was Old Man Tsang who helped her cleanse her marrows and bones. It was Old Man Tsang who taught her how to stand firm in this strange world. It was Old Man Tsang who taught her wholeheartedly that allowed her to live until now. Otherwise, she would not have rejected Guo Yu back then. Not willing? The ghost doctor's gaze darkened, her brows knitted together. The ghost doctor was astonished. Many students were racking their brains to become his disciples. Now that he took the initiative to accept Yi Qing Luo as his disciple, he was rejected instead. He could tell that Yi Qing Luo had innate talent in alchemy. He could tell that Yi Qing Luo was interested in alchemy. As long as he trained her for a period of time, she would definitely surpass him. It was very likely that he would become a medicine immortal that surpassed the medicine sovereign. Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm very happy that you're willing to take me in as your disciple, because Senior Ghost Doctor has recognized my ability. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and explained, but Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm sorry, I have no way. Lass. Old Man Tsang's voice suddenly resounded in her mind, hurriedly interrupting her words. This old man knows your intentions, but this kind of opportunity is hard to come by. Old Man Tsang loved this lass Yi Qing Luo very much. He could feel Yi Qing Luo's heart that respected him. If for him who didn't have a physical body and only had a strand of remnant soul, to sacrifice Yi Qing Luo's future, he couldn't do it, and he couldn't bear to. Yi Qing Luo was his hope, his salvation. Chapter 653. Old Man Tsang. Lass, I understand what you want to say. I'm already very satisfied that you have this intention. Old Man Tsang interrupted her words once again. Ever since you rejected Guo Yu the last time, I've been thinking for a long time. I can't be so selfish. He who was just a remnant soul, most of the time when Yi Qing Luo met with danger, he had no way to help her. Yi Qing Luo needed other help. Ghost Doctor was not only an elder-grade alchemist, his own ability was also very strong. Moreover, Ghost Doctor was worthy of trust. Lass, listen to me. Moreover, even if you become his disciple, I'm still your senior master. Hearing Old Man Tsang's words, Yi Qing Luo went into deep thoughts. Old Man Tsang's words, every word and sentence was filled with concern for her, every word and sentence was for her sake. Retracting her eyes and muttering to herself for a moment, Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes after some time, as she met Ghost Doctor's probing gaze. Senior Ghost Doctor, I admit, I want to learn alchemy skills from you. I want to become a medicine sovereign alchemist. Yi Qing Luo's voice was sincere and earnest, as her gaze towards Ghost Doctor had no intention of evading his gaze. I want to become Senior Ghost Doctor's disciple, but before this, I have to make it clear to Senior Ghost Doctor, I have a master before. Ghost Doctor's expression instantly darkened. You have a master? Who's your master? His voice paused as he seemed to have thought of something. Is it that fellow from the Imperial Palace? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. He isn't around anymore. Not around? Hearing this tone, looking at this expression. Meaning, he was dead. Ghost Doctor's gloomy expression immediately resumed back to normal, as he stretched out his left hand to hold onto Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, as he patted lightly. Then there's no problem, from now onwards, you're my direct disciple. Senior Ghost Doctor, you've misunderstood my meaning, my master isn't. I understand. Ghost Doctor's hand which patted her shoulder increased in strength, as Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle in pain. Young lady, you must look towards the future, you're still so young, and you're a rare talent. Become my disciple, then you'll be able to unleash your potential. As she spoke, the Ghost Doctor's tone became urgent, and her face revealed a hint of impatience. Wasn't it just taking in a disciple? There was no need to go through so much trouble. Yiqing Luo was in so much pain that she grimaced in pain, as her ears kept ringing with urging voices. Master, Master. Yiqing Luo twisted the fingers on her shoulder and gasped in pain, Master, can you let me go? Only then did the ghost doctor nod in satisfaction, and let go of her shoulders. I will impart to you everything related to refining elixirs without reservation. How much you can comprehend will depend on your comprehension. I'm injured. From today onwards, all the pills I need will be concocted by you. Following that, the next sentence made Yiqing Luo cough violently. Nanny? Let her refine it? Wasn't the ghost doctor thinking too highly of her? He had just taken him in as a disciple, and he hadn't even taught him anything yet, but he was already starting to refine pills? However, facing this master who would not go back on his words, Yiqing Luo could only helplessly agree. But other than the matter of refining elixirs, Yiqing Luo still had the last 5 days of freshman training, as well as Devil Class's unified training, and the interclass competitions training 8 months later. Yiqing Luo tried every means to persuade Ghost Doctor, and finally managed to convince him to spend 4 hours every afternoon to stay in the pill refining room, to listen to his guidance. Chapter 654. Otherwise the news of Ghost Doctor's injury would be exposed. After agreeing to Ghost Doctor's request, Yiqing Luo then found a chance to take out 2 stalks of medicinal herbs from the profound phoenix ring. Master, take a look at these 2 medicinal herbs. Profound ice immortal root? Infant grass? Ghost Doctor just took a glance and recognized what these 2 medicinal herbs were. These are medicinal herbs for treating bone injuries. I want to refine the bone healing pill. Bone healing pill? Ghost Doctor looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. You actually know about the bone healing pill? Bone healing pill, not only was it a high-grade healing pill, moreover, it was an extremely rare pill. Even if ordinary alchemists had heard of the bone healing pill, they wouldn't know the method to refine this pill. There were only a few alchemists who were able to refine the bone healing pill. Yiqing Luo took out these 2 main medicinal herbs, which meant that she knew the formula of the bone healing pill. From Ghost Doctor's tone, Yiqing Luo knew that Ghost Doctor was clear about the method to refine the bone healing pill. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. She had seen this bone healing pill's formula in the 100-pill refining manual. She had memorized the medicinal herbs and the method to refine it. But if she really wanted to refine the bone healing pill, if she did it hastily, the rate of failure would be extremely high. And there was a possibility that because the alchemist was not mature enough, it would lead to the insufficient supply of profound jade heart and mental power during the refining process, resulting in a backlash. If it was light, the pill refining would fail and the medicinal herbs would be destroyed. If it was heavy, profound jade heart would shatter and the person would become a cripple. This was one of the reasons why Yiqing Luo hadn't started to refine the bone healing pill after she got hold of the 2 main medicinal herbs. If Ghost Doctor knew the method to refine the bone healing pill, with his help, the success rate of refining the bone healing pill would definitely increase. And she wouldn't need to worry about the backlash happening again. I have a very good sister. In order to protect me, she had a crippled leg and it wasn't treated in time. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers tightened. I've seen her leg, it's already been 7 to 8 years. 7 to 8 years? Such a long time, the bones have already formed. If I use acupuncture and bone healing pill, I have 70% confidence to turn her into a normal person. Yiqing Luo replied firmly. Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed past a glint of admiration. Looks like the disciple he accepted was not only a genius in alchemy, but also a genius in medical skills. From her tone, it was obvious that she knew acupuncture. Although they had only known each other for a short time, the Ghost Doctor still had some understanding of his little disciple's personality. If Yiqing Luo wasn't sure of it, she wouldn't casually speak up. Since she said it out loud, she must have been mentally prepared. You want me to help you refine the bone healing pill? Ghost Doctor's words had just ended when he saw Yi Qing Luo shaking her head. Her eyes flashed with determination as her lips curled into a smile. All this while, she has been the one to suffer for my sake. I also want to do something for her. At least, I want to personally heal her leg. The Ghost Doctor was stunned. Then, he chuckled softly. Around the alchemist, the luminous pearls shone resplendently, shining on Yi Qing Luo's body, appearing so tranquil and beautiful. The Ghost Doctor's usually cold and indifferent face gradually softened, and a hint of warmth appeared between his brows. Little girl, although this matter is a little troublesome, I am still your master. If you need any help from me, just tell me. Thank you, master. Chapter 655. After coming out from the second story of the library pavilion, Yi Qing Luo received the gazes of the other students. Everyone were guessing what was the relationship between Yi Qing Luo and the library pavilion's administrator. She actually made the unreasonable administrator to allow her to enter the second story of the library pavilion. What was even more shocking was, this matter quickly spread throughout the entire academy, even to the ears of the elders' quarters and director. Everyone also saw with their own eyes that 3 elders went to the second story. However, Yi Qing Luo didn't receive any punishment. As though it was a matter of course for Yi Qing Luo to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about those students' gazes, and didn't bother about those bold students who went up to ask for the reason, as she directly walked towards the direction of Devil class. Devil class's students were all seated in the classroom, excitedly discussing the feeling of these 3 days of experience learning. Long Yunzhan and the others sat in the corner, smiling as they looked at the crowd. Have you realized that ever since Qing Luo came to Devil class, the entire atmosphere of Devil class seems to have come alive? Xiao Jin's back leaned against the wall, as his legs were placed on the wooden table. Yan Xiaoyi raised her hand and patted his thigh. Of course, Qing Luo taught everyone what a team is, what's called a companion. Everyone treated each other as their own kin who had gone through life and death together, so naturally the atmosphere is different from the past. In the past, under their control, the Devil class looked peaceful on the surface. But in the dark, all the students were competing with each other. They were secretly forming their own cliques, ostracizing those with weaker abilities. Whereas those with weaker abilities, in order not to let the team ostracize them, would ostracize those who were weaker than them. This kind of situation, as time went on, would make all the students feel alienated. Luckily, Yi Qing Luo came early. Before the situation had completely deteriorated, she had saved these students. That's good. Long Yunzhan, who had always been a man of few words, revealed a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. The few of them were astonished as they stared at Long Yunzhan. Tong Ziqing sat in a row not too far away from them and could hear their conversation, as she could clearly see the smile on Long Yunzhan's face. She pursed her lips and drooped her eyelids, enduring the sour feeling in her heart. A woman's intuition had always been accurate. Because of this, when Yi Qing Luo just joined the Devil class, she tried her best to deal with Yi Qing Luo. She knew that Long Yunzhan liked Yi Qing Luo. Who wouldn't like Yi Qing Luo? Even she was unable to avoid Yi Qing Luo's charm. He was supposed to hate Yi Qing Luo. But, Yi Qing Luo had a kind of magical power which made one unable to hate her. Sister Ziqing. A gentle woman's voice was heard. Ni Ruo sat cross-legged next to Tong Ziqing and placed her hand on Tong Ziqing's clenched fist. Tong Ziqing retracted her hand, and a trace of anger appeared on her cold and elegant face. Let go. Ni Ruopan shook her head. Sister Ziqing, don't show such an expression. Madam Qing Luo has the overlord. One day, you will definitely be able to use your sincerity to move the class monitor. Tong Ziqing liking Long Yunzhan was never a secret in the devil class. Ni Ruopan was most afraid that Tong Ziqing would dislike Yiqing Luo because of Long Yunzhan. It wasn't easy for their class to become harmonious like a big family. Ni Ruopan didn't want to hurt this big family because of anything. Moved. Tong Ziqing burst out laughing. She had always thought that Long Yunzhan didn't have a heart. Otherwise, it had been a whole 3 years. She had admired Long Yunzhan for 3 years. But it wasn't able to warm up Long Yunzhan's heart. Chapter 656. She wasn't as good as Yiqing Luo. This point, Tong Ziqing understood very well. She was unable to surpass Yiqing Luo, unable to become the kind of lady in Long Yunzhan's heart. She was unable to obtain Long Yunzhan's feelings. Sister Ziqing. Looking at Tong Ziqing's usually cold and arrogant eyes, revealing a pitiful look like an animal, Ni Ruopan's heart seemed to be touched fiercely. She held Tong Ziqing's hand tightly, as she gently hugged Tong Ziqing's shoulder. Don't worry, I've already acknowledged Yiqing Luo's position in devil class, so I will not treat her as an outsider for any reason. Tong Ziqing's brows creased, she didn't like this kind of pity. No. Ni Ruopan shook her head, I'm just feeling sorry for you, concerned about you. Tong Ziqing's petite body stiffened. She stared at Ni Ruopan for a long time, looking at Ni Ruopan's sincere gaze. A certain part of her heart suddenly softened. Look, this was Yiqing Luo's magical power. This student who was labeled as devil class's most useless and most cowardly, now dared to look straight into her eyes. What Yiqing Luo changed, was not just a person, but a person's heart, a person's soul. Tong Ziqing gave a pft as she laughed out loud. What are you all chatting about, chatting so happily? Suddenly, a clear voice was heard from outside the classroom. Following that, a slender figure walked in. The bustling sounds in the classroom seemed to have pressed the stop button, as it stopped abruptly. Very quickly, the students' faces revealed joy. Madame Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo smiled as she walked to her seat, as she looked at Xiao Jin and the rest who were huddled together, seemingly chatting idly, as her slender brows rose slightly. So lazy on the first day after the holidays, you guys as the class committee, are really incompetent. Being forcefully squeezed by someone for 3 days, finally escaping from this kind of squeezing, of course I need to have a good rest. Xiao Jin glanced meaningfully at Yiqing Luo. You still have the energy to grumble, looks like you haven't squeezed enough. Don't my great aunt, I'm wrong. I'm wrong alright. Xiao Jin immediately begged for mercy. Yen Xiaoyi raised her elbow, as she knocked Xiao Jin fiercely, as she stared at him angrily. Following that, he turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly. Why did you come over so late? I heard that you met Yiqing Qian at the academy's entrance. Everyone's expressions froze. After they entered the devil class, they had always stayed in the devil class. As for the matter of Yiqing Qian coming to the academy, they had never heard of it. Why is she still in the academy? Didn't he go to the fief with Leng Fenghua? Don't worry, just a hopping grasshopper, nothing important, don't worry. Yiqing Luo waved her hand, she didn't put Yiqing Qian in her eyes at all. Leng Fengying was an intelligent person. Even if Yiqing Qian wanted to borrow Leng Fengying's strength to deal with her, Leng Fengying would more or less consider it. Furthermore, if Yiqing Qian went overboard, Leng Fengying would also weigh the importance between her and Yiqing Qian. Losing Leng Fengying's protection, unless Yiqing Qian killed the West Continent's monarch and replaced him, otherwise she would probably have to return to her fief and become consort Ping. Don't forget the purpose of our experience learning during this 3 days break, so you don't have any extra things to do. Yiqing Luo stood up. 8 months later in the interclass competition, you've promised me that you will get first place. The originally relaxed and cozy class instantly turned solemn. There's still 5 more days before my freshman training ends. After this, I will take part in your morning training. Yiqing Luo swiftly arranged the following matters. Chapter 657. MN, after your freshman training has ended, the few of us will take part in all the training. All of them had to take part in the interclass competition. Even if they were extremely confident of their own abilities. But after all, there was always someone better out there. They knew how to hide their abilities and had buried themselves for several years. There were also others who hid their abilities, waiting for the final explosion. Moreover, and the class of gods, that mysterious and unfathomable class. They could not afford to lose this interclass competition. So any factors which might affect them, had to be considered comprehensively and come up with a solution first. Even the few members of the class committee had to take part in the training. It could be seen that this interclass competition was much more difficult than imagined. The students immediately straightened their backs as they stood ramrod straight as they looked at Yiqing Luo and the others seriously. That's good too, with your participation, they will be more serious. For the next few days, the entire devil class was extremely busy. They went through training day and night. Especially in order to motivate and stimulate the students, Yiqing Luo integrated the academy's regulations and came up with a way to record points. For example, completing double the allocated training tasks to accumulate 1 point. For example, obtaining victory in the group battles through drawing lots would accumulate 1 point. Moreover, during the group battles, Long Yunzhan and the others would also take part in drawing lots. What made the students collapse the most was they couldn't admit defeat just because they couldn't win the other party, or not fight seriously. This was disrespect towards the opponent. If they were discovered to have not given it their all, then 1 point would be deducted. These points. It was the qualification for these students to take part in the mercenary group missions during the 3 days holiday every month. Students who had less than 50 points were not allowed to take part in the mercenary group missions. These students had obviously felt a huge increase in their abilities in these 3 days of experience learning. All of them wanted to take part in the mercenary group missions and wanted to go on missions together with Yiqing Luo and the others. Because of this, after the points regulations came out, the students' attitude towards training had increased. Most importantly, because of Long Yunzhan and the others' participation, all the training exercises had increased by more than 2 times. Initially the students were struggling, but during this period of time, their bodies had been tortured to the point where they had an extremely strong ability to accept it. On the 3rd day, the students were already able to keep up with Long Yunzhan and the others' training. But Yiqing Luo brought over the gravity belt and made them carry 50 kilograms of weight on their bodies to continue their training. The students were so miserable that they even wanted to die. All of them were so tired that they were about to vomit blood. However, Yiqing Luo totally had no intention of feeling heartache for them. He even summoned his battle pet, Shiju. He let Shiju sit at the side and supervise. If any student stopped before the training ended, Shiju would definitely not be polite and put on a show. It was a game of cat and mouse. Absolutely marvelous. As for Yiqing Luo, these few days, it was. After the freshman training ended, Ling Chen rushed to the medicine refining room to receive the ghost doctor's guidance and refine pills. Coming out from the pill refining room, he rushed to the devil class and trained together with the students of the devil class. After the training ended, he followed Long Yunzhan to the spiritual Qi treasure land and entered the Azure Dew bracelet to train with Old Man Tsang. Yiqing Luo was already eager to try the 2nd level of the Purgatory Tower. However, Old Man Tsang still didn't agree to let her enter the 2nd floor to train. Although Yiqing Luo had already advanced to Mystic Profound 8th grade. However, This kind of leapfrogging 4 ranks in a row was an instantaneous increase in power. Chapter 658. These few days, as it was nearing the countdown to the freshman training, the 2 instructors' training was getting more and more torturous and difficult. And after the devastating training by the 2 instructors, these freshmen's temper had long been smoothed out. Facing any tasks assigned by the instructors, they would complete it without any hesitation. The freshmen also noticed the changes in their bodies after their training. Because of this, no matter how tough and tiring the training was, they didn't throw a tantrum. Very soon, it was the last day of the freshman training. Yiqing Luo arrived at the freshman training ground early in the morning and ran 2 rounds around the training ground alone before the freshmen started to arrive. After Lu Xiaoyu arrived, she followed behind Yiqing Luo and asked, "Qing Luo, after the freshman training ends, the time we have to meet will be even lesser." They were freshmen and the teachers would be stricter on them than the other students. There were endless things waiting for them every day and there was no time to meet up for a chat and so on. Moreover, ever since the holidays, Yiqing Luo was obviously busier than before. Learning is more important. When we have enough ability, the teachers will not be so strict. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up. "You better improve your ability in the intermediate profound class, and when this month's holiday is over, I'll bring you out for experience learning." Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up. Yiqing Luo led the Imperial Palace's disciples to form a team and even went against the high profound class in the restaurant. Lu Xiaoyu, who was extremely concerned about Yiqing Luo, naturally heard about it. She heard that Yiqing Luo didn't forget to go out for experience learning with the team during the holidays, carrying out real combat training. Lu Xiaoyu's blood was boiling. On hearing that Yiqing Luo wanted to bring her along, Lu Xiaoyu kept nodding her head. "This is what you said, when the holidays are over, I will keep pestering you." The 2 of them chatted as they ran and the instructors also arrived. The freshmen stood in line and waited for the instructors to give instructions. 1 month of freshman training, today is the last day. Instructor Ho was expressionless as he said in a loud voice, "From tomorrow onwards, you don't need to come to the freshman training ground for training." None of the freshmen cheered or jumped for joy. They still stood quietly at the same spot, not making a sound. From the end of today's training, all of you will be official students of the Heavenly Academy. What awaits you will be a month of learning and training that is worse than death. I hope that all the students will continue to train every day after the freshman training ends. The 2 instructors spoke one after another, repeating the words that they would say every time the freshmen finished their training. Then, they entered the main topic. It's the last day of freshman training. I've discussed it with Instructor He and decided to cancel today's training. We'll use a different method to end the freshman training. The corner of Instructor Chu's eyes twitched as he scanned through the freshmen. But his gaze was indistinctly fixed on Yiqing Luo. The freshmen will take turns to challenge either me or Instructor He. As long as you succeed in your challenge, today's training will be over. If you fail, you can also leave the training ground. Instructor Chu's words made the freshmen widen their eyes in shock. Challenging 2 instructors? How could they possibly succeed in the challenge? The other party was an extremely powerful instructor. Instructor Chu and Instructor He had already raised their hands, signaling the freshmen to disperse and empty the training ground. The instructors were serious. Chapter 659. Instructor Chu and Instructor Ho were the strictest and strongest instructors among the freshman instructors. Even Wu Fuzi from the high profound class was no match for the 2 instructors. Not to mention these freshmen. Challenge successful? What a joke. Everyone's vision subconsciously looked towards Yiqing Luo. Among the entire freshmen, only Yiqing Luo had the ability to challenge the instructors. At this moment, these freshmen seemed to have forgotten about it. This Yiqing Luo, in their eyes, was a waste student from the waste class. After hearing the challenge, Yi Qing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu pushed to one side, leaving an empty space in the middle of the training ground. But she did not expect everyone's vision to be on her. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched, immediately her charming eyes curved. I am a student of the devil class, I should be the last one. Such a strong reason, the freshmen were speechless. If Yi Qing Luo was not up, then who? The freshmen looked at each other in dismay. No one was willing to be the first. They were not fools. Before they entered the Heavenly Academy, they had already inquired about the rules of the Heavenly Academy. Challenge the instructors, and if they failed, they could leave the training ground? How could there be such a simple thing in the Heavenly Academy? Thinking about it, they had just been admitted to the academy on the second day and they had already started to accept the instructors' training. Although it was said to be training, it was actually an assessment. A class allocation assessment. Their results in those 3 days of training would be included in the overall results of the class allocation. Naturally, on the last day of the freshman training. Naturally, it would not be a simple challenge to the instructors. There was a high possibility that this challenge to the instructors would be included in one of their results. If their performance was too poor, it would pull down the overall results. These freshmen had a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Now that the instructors were full of energy, the first one to go up was simply seeking death. Why not wait for the other students to take turns, and after the instructor's energy was depleted, they could then go up? The freshmen all had the same thought. After pushing for some time, none of the freshmen took a step forward. The two instructors' faces sunk. Instructor Ho berated impatiently, "Where has this 1 month of training gone to? You don't have any guts and still want to become strong? Go home and ask your mother for a hug." Pfft. Yi Qing Luo laughed out in an unkind manner. She couldn't be blamed for losing her composure. Instructor Ho's face was expressionless as he asked for a hug with a straight face. It was almost comical. Those students' faces turned red from what she said, and when they heard Yi Qing Luo's laughter, they felt that Yi Qing Luo was ridiculing them. The young and hot-blooded freshmen were proud and arrogant. How could they endure being looked down upon by others? Immediately, a student stood up. "I'll do it." In less than 30 minutes, there were already more than 20 students lying on the ground, crying out in pain. No one could last more than 5 moves against the instructor. When the instructor's fists and palm energy landed on the freshmen's bodies, they wouldn't hurt their internal organs, but they were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. There were already a few freshmen from the intermediate profound class, but none of them managed to gain any advantage from the instructors. There were also some new students from the low profound class who heard the cries of pain from the other new students. They were so scared that they shrank back and did not dare to step forward to challenge. Next. Instructor Ho stood in the middle of the training ground and glanced at the students around him gloomily. Although he was expressionless, the aura he emitted made people feel clearly, he was in a very bad mood. Could he be any better? Chapter 660. So what if your profound level is high and your physical fitness is strong? In the face of an attack, he would not make the first judgment and act rashly. He was full of openings. After training for a month, there was no improvement at all. It was worrying whether these students would be able to graduate. The students around them didn't move. They tried their best to hide behind the other freshmen. Instructor Ho frowned, seeing that there were still no students coming up. His vision fell onto Yi Qing Luo. Instructor Chu also looked at Yi Qing Luo. Among this batch of new students, the one they valued the most was Yi Qing Luo. He wondered how this female student's combat skills were like. The other freshmen heaved a sigh of relief as they looked towards Yi Qing Luo. His meaning was obvious. He hoped that Yi Qing Luo would take the field. As long as Yi Qing Luo took the field, she might be able to defeat the instructors and this freshman training session would come to an end. Although there was only a small chance of him winning, Lin Yun was not a match for Lin Yun. But, compared to anyone else present, Yi Qing Luo's chances of winning was the biggest. Half of Yi Qing Luo's body was leaning on Lu Xiaoyu, as she squinted her eyes, staring at Instructor Ho. Seeing their gazes converging on her, Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly, but there wasn't a single trace of fluster on her face from being called out. On the contrary, when she opened her charming eyes, there were faint ripples in the depths of her eyes. He seemed extremely satisfied. "I'm a student of the devil class." Every word was spat out very clearly. "She's smiling." The other thoughts in his heart and the hope on his face were gradually replaced by anger. Shangguan Liuli's expression was sinister as she clenched her teeth tightly. "Yi Qing Luo, you're obviously afraid. You can't even beat the two instructors, so you're using the devil class as an excuse." Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders. "Did I say that I can beat the instructor? You." Shangguan Liuli clenched her fists. "You coward." He didn't even dare to take the final challenge of the freshman training. Students from the trash class were trash. "You really think so highly of yourself?" The other freshmen nodded in agreement. "Humph. How powerful did he think he was? I was just in the limelight during training, but you really want to take advantage of me? Aren't you very arrogant? Why did you back off when you challenged the instructor? If you really have the ability, then defeat the instructor. If you succeed, I'll kneel down and call you Grand Aunt." At this moment, the freshmen were extremely nervous and fearful. Especially when he thought about how he had subconsciously placed all his hopes on the trash of a trash class, he felt ashamed. He urgently needed an opening to vent the anger in his heart. Shangguan Liuli raised her head and all of them started to berate Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Her curved, charming eyes, long and narrow with a demonic charm, outlined a strong sense of sarcasm. "If you have the ability, go ahead. If you don't have the ability, then don't shut your mouths." Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. Towards these freshmen's three views, she was slightly tipsy. Were these people sick in the head? She did not speak at all, nor did she show any expression. She was dragged into the flames of war. It was like getting shot while lying down. "Yi Qing Luo. You're the one who has no ability. You coward. Who do you think you are? How dare you tell us to shut up? You don't even have the courage to challenge us, yet you want us to shut up? The trash from the trash class is not only trash, but also lowly." Yi Qing Luo's mouth twitched a few times. "Damn it. This student, have your three views been eaten by a dog? Who was the one with the lowly qualities?" Instructor Ho couldn't bear it any longer and angrily rebuked, "What's with all the noise? If you're unhappy, come straight to me." The freshman immediately kept quiet. Chapter 661. They must be sick. Lu Xiaoyu suppressed the urge to retort and whispered into Yi Qing Luo's ear. "If they have the ability, why don't they do it themselves? On one hand, they pinned their hopes on you, on the other hand, they call you trash. They are really contradictory." Well, they definitely didn't take their medicine and were released. Yi Qing Luo nodded in agreement. "Let me try." Suddenly, a cold and calm voice came from the freshman. Immediately, a slender, handsome young man walked out. The young man looked indifferent and his attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. When he stood in front of Instructor Ho, he bowed his head slightly to show his respect. "Qi Yi Jing from High Profound Class 1. Male God Qi. Male God Qi." The freshmen were excited. In this batch of freshmen, there were only 2 students who entered the High Profound class. Qi Yi Jing was one of them. They were also the 2 most powerful people in this batch of students. When the freshmen were cheering, they did not forget to glance at Yiqing Luo proudly. Oh, they still had Qi Yijing. They didn't care about her at all. Yiqing Luo, who received this look, twitched her mouth again and was speechless. Challenger, Qi Yijing. As soon as Instructor Ho's voice fell, the entire training ground fell into silence. All the freshmen held their breath and watched the battle nervously. If even Qi Yijing couldn't withstand 5 moves, there was no hope for them at all. Qi Yijing's expression became dignified and vigilantly laid out an offensive stance. Just as he was about to launch an attack, Instructor Ho raised his hand and made a pause gesture. Wait a minute. Immediately, Instructor Ho turned around and walked to Instructor Chu's side. For the next few rounds, Instructor Chu will accept your challenges. Qi Yijing's face changed slightly as he frowned at Instructor Ho. After Instructor Ho glanced at him, he looked away casually. It seemed, changing the instructor to accept the challenge was just a whim. Qi Yijing clenched his fists, took a deep breath and nodded in resignation, yes. Instructor Chu, I'm sorry. With a greeting, Qi Yijing quickly made his move. He didn't use his full strength, it was all to test Instructor Chu. His reflexes were also extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 moves. The freshmen widened their eyes in shock. There was actually a freshman who could withstand so many moves from the instructor and still wasn't done. Moreover, it was obvious that Qi Yijing did not use his full strength. Qi Yijing had hopes of defeating the instructor. The freshmen's hearts were in their throats as they stared at Qi Yijing nervously. Shengguan Liuli's eyes sparkled as she stared complacently at Yiqing Luo. But she realized that Yiqing Luo didn't even look at her. Yiqing Luo stared intently at the two of them, hooked her arm around Lu Xiaoyu's shoulder and smiled. Qi Yijing is very smart, Instructor Ho is very black-bellied. Huh? Lu Xiaoyu was confused. The reason why Qi Yijing didn't challenge the instructor until now is to observe Instructor He's habits and strength. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. The fact that Qi Yijing is on the stage means that he already has a way to defeat Instructor He, or he has concluded a way to restrain Instructor He. However, Instructor He is also an old fox. She could see Qi Yijing's plan. Instructor Ho naturally saw it too. In the end, the instructor suggested that they take turns to challenge them, but it wasn't enough just to defeat them. But they wanted to sum up the strengths and weaknesses of the students in the sparring, so that the masters in their class could give strict guidance to one of them. Chapter 662. Qi Yijing wanted to use the observation method to restrain Instructor Ho, but Instructor Ho didn't intend to let him try. Because of that, he deliberately let Instructor Chu, who hadn't been on the field, take over. Qi Yijing's idea fell through. But Qi Yijing was indeed a talent. Even if it was Instructor Chu, he would be able to readjust his steps in the shortest time possible. After testing Instructor Chu, he quickly calculated the most suitable way to deal with Instructor Chu. Yiqing Luo's heart, which wanted to dig out someone's heart, started to stir. Cough cough. It seemed that ever since the establishment of the World Mercenary Group, whenever she saw a talent, she would want to hook up with the World Group. Qi Yijing is so powerful. Lu Xiaoyu nodded her head as she looked at the exchange of blows between Qi Yijing and Instructor Chu with adoration. Their speed was extremely fast and their moves were getting sharper and sharper. Unknowingly, another 20 overblows had passed. As time went by, the other students also heard that today was the last day of freshman training, and they all wanted to know what methods the instructors would come up with to end this season's freshman training. The entire training ground was gradually surrounded by layers and layers of people. Almost there. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes and said indifferently, "What? Lu Xiaoyu looked up at her in puzzlement. Yiqing Luo smiled mysteriously. Just at this moment, the students outside the field exclaimed, "Male god Qi, be careful." Qi Yijing, who was facing off, had the upper hand. The next second, Instructor Chu's figure moved swiftly, and with a palm wind, he went up from Qi Yijing's back. Just as Qi Yijing was about to counter this palm wind, Instructor Chu's feet flashed and he flashed to the other side of Qi Yijing, and his fist landed on Qi Yijing's abdomen. Qi Yijing immediately cried out in pain as he clutched his abdomen and half knelt on the ground. Lost. Qi Yijing lost. The clamor, which was still cheering for Qi Yijing, gradually died down. They actually lost? Obviously. Qi Yijing could have won. The freshmen at this moment were completely disheartened. They thought that Instructor Chu's ability was weaker, and coincidentally it was Qi Yijing's challenge. Seeing that Qi Yijing had the upper hand after 30 over blows, they thought that they could win easily. But lost? Would they still have a chance to win? Jing! Dong Huanglang rushed over and helped Qi Yijing up. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Qi Yijing covered his abdomen and stood up with the help of Dong Huanglang. He shook his head slowly and said, "You are indeed the instructor of the freshmen." "I am convinced." Instructor Chu gently patted the wrinkles on his clothes. His face was calm, as if the battle just now did not affect him at all. Hearing Qi Yijing's words, he looked up and said, "Student Qi is a very talented student. If she is trained well, she will definitely become a great person." The students gasped and looked at Qi Yijing enviously. This was the second person to be praised by the cold-faced instructor. Although Qi Yijing had lost this battle, however, he was able to withstand more than 30 moves from Instructor Chu and was praised by Instructor Chu, so it was not considered a loss. Next, Instructor Chu raised his voice again. This time, it was Dong Huanglang's turn. He helped Qi Yijing to Yiqing Luo's side, walked to the front of Instructor Chu and bowed slightly. As soon as he attacked, Dong Huanglang's momentum was very fast. Different from Qi Yijing's step-by-step probing and pressing. He was completely the representative of, "Don't be afraid, fight directly." Such a strong attack had caught Instructor Chu off guard. This battle was also exciting and dangerous. Chapter 663. Qing Luo, how did you know that Qi Yijing would lose? Lu Xiaoyu finally understood what Yiqing Luo meant when she said, "almost done," earlier. He was referring to the fact that this battle was almost over. Lu Xiaoyu was very curious about how Yiqing Luo was able to analyze the psychological state of both parties so clearly as though she was a god. It was obvious that Qi Yijing had the upper hand, but Yiqing Luo knew that he would lose. Qi Yijing, who was staring at the battle between Dong Huanglang and Instructor Chu, also turned to look at them. Yiqing Luo held her chin and explained patiently. From the beginning, Instructor Chu was deliberately being modest. The reason why he let you challenge him is to understand your habits and strength. Once they understand clearly, they will end the battle quickly. Just like Qi Yijing's match. Yiqing Luo met Qi Yijing's gaze and said indifferently, "Instructor Chu has been fighting with you to see your potential. After getting the result, Instructor Chu will not waste any more time." It was not that Instructor Chu's ability was not good. It was Instructor Chu who used his own way to test Qi Yijing's potential. Qi Yijing nodded, indicating that he agreed with Yiqing Luo's words. And at this time, Dong Huanglang had also made more than 20 moves. At the last moment, he was knocked down to the ground and lost. The two freshmen who were allocated to the high profound class had lost. The last chance was gone. No, they still had a chance. "Luli, should we say something soft and let Yiqing Luo?" a female student whispered. Yiqing Luo's strength was very strong. At least from her recent performance, her strength was absolutely enough to be allocated to the high profound class. What soft words! Why are you looking for her? How can a waste be better than Qi Jing and Dong Huang Lang from the high profound class? Shangguan Luli shook off the female student's hand fiercely and berated her. But, no buts. Didn't you see that she has been evading, hiding, and not daring to come over? She is simply afraid, waiting for us to challenge the instructor and reap the benefits. Shangguan Luli did not hesitate to interrupt the female student's words. No matter how powerful Yiqing Luo was, she was not as powerful as the instructor. What did she want from Yiqing Luo? She doesn't dare, but I dare. I'll challenge you. Shangguan Liuli snorted coldly and walked to the center of the training ground. Looking at the increasing number of students around her, Shangguan Liuli clenched her fists. If she could withstand at least 10 moves, it wouldn't be too embarrassing. Fortunately, Instructor Chu was the one who accepted the challenge. Seeing that Dong Huang Lang and Qi Yijing could exchange 20 to 30 moves with Instructor Chu's strength was definitely not as good as the other instructors. Thinking of this, Shangguan Liuli felt more confident. Attack! Attack! However, Shangguan Liuli had just condensed her qi and was about to make a move, but she found that Instructor Chu's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She quickly released her perception to search for Instructor Chu. Suddenly, he felt pain in his back. It was over before it even started. In less than a single move. The crowd was in an uproar. This was probably the worst challenge of the day. Those who had challenged previously and were assigned to the low profound class, the weakest among them had at least passed 2 moves. The other freshmen looked at Shangguan Liuli as if they were looking at an idiot. It was so silly that it made people laugh. The other freshmen were not nervous or afraid at this time. Anyway, with the 5th miss of the Shangguan family at the bottom, what was there for them to be afraid of? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.